sir. Sorry about the delay.
No worries, no worries. We do have a quorum. So I will go ahead and now call our meeting to order of the Public Safety, Finance, and Strategic Support Committee on the 20th of May. If we can do a roll call vote, please. Or excuse me, just a roll call.
Arenas,
Here.
Jimenez,
Present.
Peralez.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, and item B is the review of our work plan. Nothing that I have or staff has to be added, dropped, or deferred. I'll ask for my colleagues if you have any items. If not, if we can get a motion to approve the work plan.
Move approval.
We have a motion. If we can get a second. I'll second it. And I'll ask now if we can do a roll call vote.
Arenas,
Yes.
Jimenez,
Yes.
Peralez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, this takes us down to our consent calendar. And I don't see any hands raised. And let me pause for a second. Anybody who's in our public that wishes to comment on any items today, if you're on Zoom, you can raise your hand. If you are calling in by phone, you can press star 9, and then we're on our consent item right now. And so I don't see any hands going up. And so if we can get a motion in a second to approve the consent.
Move
Motion
approval.
to approve.
Second.
We have a motion in a second. Thank you very much. And we do have one hand that popped up. So we'll go over to Blair Beekman before we vote.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Boy, thank you for seeing my hand raised. I just wanted to apologize, I guess, for I am a bit inexperienced with budget issues, and I got a lot of budget issues last week, and that I'm learning about. I gave some interpretation of those budget pages that were not fully correct, and I was a bit rebuked by the mayor late Tuesday evening, and it hurt, and I guess I'm learning my lessons from that. I tried to offer my point of view, where I'm coming from, that I still feel can be applicable to, the budget items, but I'm sorry that I need to learn to better practice budget interpretation skills, and I'll be trying to do that. So thank you for this item.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that, if we can do a roll call vote, please.
Arenas,
Yes.
Jimenez,
Yes.
Peralez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now that moves us on to our regular agenda. We have first up item D1, which is our police reforms work plan, reimagining community safety status report. And I'm going to ask first, Angel, can you give an indication of how long the report is going to be from you?
The presentation will be about 13 minutes.
Okay.
If you like, I could try to cut that down if you'd like, or.
No, I wanted to get an indication because I know we have some members of our community that are interested and maybe time limited on that. And so I wanted to give an indication to them that, and so if you're interested on speaking on this item, you can please raise your hand so you can be entered into the queue, and then I'll turn it over to you now, Angel.
Okay, well, thank you, Council Member. Good afternoon, Angel Rios, Deputy City Manager here with the City of San Jose. And also joining me here, staff that have been working on this effort here, Sulma Maciel, Director of Office of Race and Equity, Senior Executive Analyst Peter Hamilton. We also have joining us here in the event that there's questions related to police specific. We have Chief Mata and Assistant Chief Paul Joseph. And we also have Cece Vu, who's the lead consultant from Kearns and West. In today's presentation, we'll start by giving you an overview of our progress on the project so far, provide a summary of the feedback and concerns we've heard from advisory group members, and finish with a discussion of where we go from here. But first, some context. May 25th, 2020 was a real catalytic moment, not only for our nation, but for our city. As we know, George Floyd, a Black man, was murdered by a white Minneapolis police officer. And in response to this murder and other police killings, there was significant street protest and a lot of expressed concern, anger, and frustration. The city's response to these protests and to concurrent incidents of civil unrest really attracted a lot of criticism. And there were a couple of council meetings, namely on June 9th, and then a special meeting on June 12th, where the council heard extensive public testimony regarding these concerns about specific city actions related to the recent protest, as well as broader concerns related to policing. After hearing this testimony and extensive council discussion, the council took action to direct the city manager, independent police auditor, and city attorney to pursue a range of proposals related to policing in San Jose. So during this during the meetings in June and August of 2020, what the administration did was collected the council direction provided to the city manager into one tracking document, now known as the Police Reforms Work Plan. This work plan is overseen by our Assistant City Manager, Jennifer McGuire. And the purpose of this work plan is to track the progress in implementing council direction and to keep the council and public updated on staff's efforts. This work plan included this reimagining community safety work. And in fact, if you take a look at the work plan, for those that are tracking that work plan, it's item 12 on that work plan, also attachment A of the memo that was presented in March. So that's some background and context in terms of kind of what was a driving focus or emphasis on this very important work. With that in mind, we are working off significant council conversation and direction. And what you see here on this, there's a lot of words up there, but basically what we try to do is capture the direction that we received over the course of those two meetings. And those are listed there, also included in the attached memo. So based on the council direction, when you take all this feedback together, the process scope focuses really in two areas. The first area is broadly described as alternatives to policing. It involved identifying alternative service models to address issues that are currently handled by the police department. And then secondly, the second one is really around community and police relations. In particular, developing recommendations on how to improve community-police relations and identifying ongoing ways to take community feedback. And so with this in mind, we took this direction and we launched this Reimagine the Community Safety effort. We led really with translating that council direction into these four overarching goals. And starting with goal number one, creating a shared vision of community safety, followed by a second goal, which is engaging community stakeholders in a dialogue and community process that evaluates and recommends new ways in which the police department and non-law enforcement sectors intervene with social issues and reduce social conflicts that are non-criminal in nature. And then the third one around carrying out an effective and inclusive community engagement process that is transparent, yields high participation from all sides of the issues, and builds strong, sustainable relationships and partnerships between community and police. And the last one was more of a process one, which is generate recommendations that would enable the vision of community safety, pass those on to the mayor and council for action. So after receiving this council direction, we did convene this community safety advisory group with broad representation from community, including faith leaders, social justice advocates, leadership within communities of color, criminal justice experts, police representation, private sector representatives, youth representation, and neighborhood representatives, among others. Staff assembled an advisory group based on those criteria, and a broadly representative group was established. It met for the first time on March 18th. It held two subsequent meetings on the 9th and the 22nd of April. The group's first two meetings were introductory. Members introduced themselves and staff presented on the group scope, proposed methodology, and other guiding values. One of the key values that we introduced into this process from day one was the value and the race and equity lens that we think is very important to this conversation. Namely, the 4 principles centered around the need to really focus this work and hone in on impact and outcomes, to look at data and analysis, to center this work in community voices and lived experiences, and to establish a method of accountability around this work. Questions and concerns about the group scope were raised during these meetings. The 3rd meeting occurred a few days after the verdict in the George Floyd murder trial. The meeting included an opportunity for members to reflect on the verdict and a presentation by staff on the group scope in response to questions at the previous meetings. Subsequent to this meeting, a number of advisory group members resigned over concerns regarding the scope and autonomy of the group, and we'll look at those concerns in this next section. So in terms of feedback from the advisory group, there's several themes that have emerged, and they're listed here. They largely fall within the area of scope, community leadership and autonomy, group organization, respect and common understanding, and communication and accountability. This is a summary of the concerns that we've heard from advisory group members. As you would expect, with such a diverse group, we were going to have conflict. And there were many different opinions and perspectives, and clearly perspectives collided. No doubt about that. We don't capture all of the opinions here, but these are the main themes that we've heard from the group. The concerns expressed in the first 2 bullets regarding scope and autonomy were key concerns of those who resigned. The group scope and autonomy also implicate council direction, so staff is limited in how we can respond to these issues without additional council guidance. The last 3 bullets are also areas of strong interest for many advisory group members. Staff believes these concerns could be addressed within the current council direction through focused and collaborative work between staff and the advisory group. From here, we'll take a look in greater detail at the issues of scope and autonomy. We've heard 3 main areas of interest from advisory group members shown here. Many members are interested in finding, the first general theme is there's a very strong interest in finding alternative ways to respond to issues that currently fall to the police. This work is clearly within the scope of the current council direction. A lot of strong interest in really taking a look at finding alternatives to doing this. The second theme that has really emerged is really the need to focus on neighborhood safety. Members are interested in maintaining and improving neighborhood safety in any effort to change the police service model and move some responsibilities out of the department wherever applicable. Neighborhood safety is a key priority for many of our advisory group members. We heard loud and clear from various neighborhood residents that they really want to make sure that we focus our time and efforts into ensuring better safety in their respective neighborhoods. And any changes in service model, should include them and their perspective in that work. And so given this close relationship, staff believes that we can, really work on those 2 overarching themes within the current scope that was already in the intent of the reimagining work. It's this 3rd one that has become a little more problematic. And, many in the advisory group are interested in more direct police reform. And police reform really is defined around or to include areas such as oversight and accountability, and really the need for addressing more police reform issues in a more substantial way, in a more direct way, as a kind of a first order of business. And it's this 3rd area that we don't necessarily see falls under the current council direction that we have, and is subject to one of the decision points today. But clearly there is a very, one of the perspectives that has emerged is a very loud, really demand for police reform to be included as part of this scope. Going on to the next slide, in the next section of community leadership and autonomy. The question of the group's relationship with the city and the degree of leadership from advisory group members has also been a key area of concern. There are differences of opinion among advisory group members on this point. Some are supportive of maintaining the group as a city established body with modifications to its structure that give advisory group members a stronger hand in leading the group, such as through establishing a steering committee. This option would result in collaborative leadership between staff and group members and could be accomplished under current council direction. Other members believe the process needs to be fully autonomous from the city. They are concerned that the process not be checked or filtered by the city manager's office or any other elected official or the police department. And so along these lines, some have requested that the police department not be involved in the process. And again, these are varied perspectives. There are those that feel very strongly that the police department should not be a part of this conversation. There are others that feel the exact opposite, that they should be part of this conversation. Staff would need additional council direction to participate in a process that is autonomous from the city or that did not include the police department. If the city were to become involved in an autonomous process, work would need to be done on how the city would be involved in terms of staffing or funding. In terms of some next steps, we believe that in a nutshell, if we had to kind of frame kind of the issues that have emerged, there are three overarching key decision points that would really need to be addressed. The first one is in regard to scope. We would need council direction to add the issues of police accountability and oversight or other police reform issues into the group scope. And so that's one of the first decision points. The second has to do with autonomy and whether or not this should be a community-led only process separate from the city, or do we keep the same structure, or do we come up with some type of hybrid structure? So the organizational structure or autonomy of the advisory group is the second decision point. And then the third one is related to police participation and involvement. Given the mixed views on whether police should be involved, what is council's interest in either including or excluding police in all or some of this process? Those, in our opinion, are the three key decision points that we would need to further vet and clarify in order to really scope this out in an effective manner and move forward. So as far as next steps, we have this update to PISFIS. You were asking that this would be cross-referenced to the June 8th meeting to the full mayor and council. And then based on the council direction that we receive here and there, we would work collaboratively to develop a revised project work plan, timeline, budget as needed. So that concludes the formal presentation, and we're available for any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. And I know at times for people that are first commenting here in the committee, when they hear PISFIS, I know when I heard of it, they think of maybe like a candy or something like that. But sorry for anybody, that's just our acronym for this committee, the Public Safety, Finance, and Strategic Support Committee. But we use that PISFIS acronym often, and we use a lot of acronyms often, unfortunately, that can be confusing at times. But thank you, Angel, for the presentation. We'll now go over to members of our public, and everybody will have 2 minutes to speak. And there we go. Okay, first up we have Poncho Guevara.
Good afternoon, members of the council and other folks. My name is Poncho Guevara. I'm the executive director of Sacred Heart Community Service, and also a member of the Race Equity Action Leadership Coalition, of which several members were tapped to participate in the advisory group. I think you heard from Angel about the nature of why folks left the process, but I think there were a couple other things I just want to emphasize. Was a sense of urgency on the part of our administration and the city leadership to actually address these issues, which are absolutely critical, not only now but actually moving forward. We are nearly a year removed from the murder of Mr. Floyd, and the actions of other communities around the country have actually far outpaced what we've been able to do over the last year. In part because we have had some of the same kind of infrastructure with like an Office of Racial Equity and other things that have been established this year, and waiting for the selection of a new chief to actually proceed going through this process. There's a great deal of frustration around how can we move forward with this and identify these alternatives to policing. We want to support the strong recommendation because as we open up the conversation around what does community safety look like, the need for including police accountability and oversight as part of the scope of some kind of a process is really critical. There is a desire on the part of members of the larger coalition that we have direct access to the council and being able to talk about these issues. So working with the administration is fine for vetting and developing proposals, but also being able to make sure that whatever is developed through a community process can be directly taken to this committee and to members of the council to be able to further support. And we do believe a hybrid process could be very valuable where leadership from the community is guiding the process with administrative data and other support from city administration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then I'll list a couple in line so you know where you're at. Next up is Derek, and then we have William Armeline, and then Jay Guzman. So Derek is next. And go ahead, Derek. I believe you're now unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much to the council for hearing my public comment. I'm an organizer with Sacred Heart, particularly with the Race, Equity, and Community Safety Committee, or REX for short. And I'm also a resident of District 5. Many people have feared that if we take responsibilities away from the cops, that our city will be ravaged by crime. But SJPD is already thinly staffed as it is, and it isn't even able to respond to all of the calls that come in on a daily basis. Right now, there's vacant positions in SJPD that add up to over $33 million. Yet the police force hasn't grown much in the last 4 to 5 years. The city auditor's report made it clear that adding more community service officers and reassessment to the types of calls they can respond to would fix this. Why not prioritize these city workers who do not have guns and are already responding to 60% of nonviolent calls and give them fair wages that they deserve? From what we've heard, community service officers and many other city workers who run programs and services that keep us safe would jump at the opportunity to do more to serve our communities. And there are so many other underfunded services that keep us safe. And we stand with these city workers. We demand that the city council refund our communities by reallocating funds to services like community service officers, housing for the unhoused community, libraries, wastewater plants, animal shelters, so that residents can get the help that they need when they need it. If we don't, then we're going to lose great staff to our to other municipalities, have difficulties recruiting folks, and those of us who live here are going to suffer even from even more thinly staffed services, and will continue to distress the city.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you. Next up is William Armeline.
Hello, it's good afternoon. It's nice to speak to all of you today. I want to thank you all. I'd also like to thank Angel for all his hard work on the presentation and on this process thus far. And I'd also like to thank and just sort of second the comments of my colleagues Poncho and Derek just now, kind of saving me some time as well in my own. So as you may know, I was the author of the letter of exit, if you will, of several of the organizations, including NAACP, Somos Mayfair, Black Leadership Kitchen Cabinet, La Raza Lawyers, La Raza Roundtable, and others. And the same group of folks asked, I think, out of a genuine good faith effort in this process, for me to help put together a proposal for what that community-led process would look like, right? So out of continuity and fairness, we made these demands and those demands were represented at the press conference as well. And I think out of good faith and genuinely wanting to contribute and make something happen here, this is the effort on our and their part to put forward what that might look like. So there is a proposal now. It's in the hands of all of the organizations and folks who are part of the letter of exit and also the solidarity letter that followed. There's a meeting being set up right now as we speak for early next week, where this group of folks will meet to discuss that proposal, vet it, and discuss revisions. And also, frankly, where some of the questions that Angel brought up will be discussed in terms of representation on the group and some of those other logistical and sort of structural questions. And so I'm just here basically to help the committee and give that brief feedback. And I stand sort of ready to serve the community and city in this process.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Jay Guzman.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Hello, and thank you so much to you all for hearing my public comment today. I am a member of Sacred Heart's Racial Equity and Community Safety Committee and a resident of District 3. I'm calling in today to request that you support the formation of a Blue Ribbon Commission to ensure that we are centering the voices and the demands of the community members directly impacted by police violence. A Blue Ribbon Commission could provide program proposals, identify the departments responsible for providing those services, and ensure equitable funding. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, then next three in line, we have Sandra Asher, Scott Largent, and then Jayla Robinson. So Sandra's up now.
There it is. Okay, can you hear me now? Sorry, I had a little trouble finding the mute button there.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, and appreciate you guys hearing our public comments today. I'm a member of Sacred Heart's Racial Equity and Community Safety Committee, or RECS. I'm also on the board of a number of nonprofits that provide support for our residents with severe mental illnesses and other special needs. And then finally, I'm a resident of District 10. The goal of the Reimagining Community Safety Task Force was to address problems in our community and lower crime rates, provide non-police response to domestic violence incidents, and support our residents with mental illness and disabilities. However, as has been discussed, this task force has failed, and the members that have left are in support of fully funding a Blue Ribbon Commission that would better address these issues. The Blue Ribbon Commission can provide proposals on what programs and services, as well as the city workers who provide them, need, and fair and equitable funding that makes us truly safe. I'm curious how you could truly reimagine public safety if you don't include police reforms. If public safety is a priority for you, then you should transition this task force into a Blue Ribbon Commission led by community members and expand its budget. We've seen that reimagining community safety is possible. For example, Oakland and San Francisco have created oversight committees and expanded mental health response systems, which do not require police. LA, Denver, Portland, and New York have already implemented or are exploring diverting 911 calls for mental health crisis to teams of medics and mental health professionals instead of law enforcement. Let's protect our women, children, and our most vulnerable students by standing up this Blue Ribbon Commission to truly reimagine community safety here in San Jose. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Scott Largent.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Scott Largent. You know, hearing this, the feedback right now about putting together a Blue Ribbon Commission, I think that's a fantastic idea. The current route right now, as far as police reforms, these listening sessions, these different meetings, they're what I call healing illusions. I don't think anything's ever going to really materialize. And I just think you guys could take a page from the county, what they were able to do, kind of rehabbing our sheriff's department, getting them in line, and just really being able to listen to the public. You know, I participated in the Blue Ribbon Commission, just being able to voice my opinion, felt like I belonged there, felt like things were listened to. And that's not what I get currently out of the city of San Jose. I just worry you guys just turn the other way and just really don't care. You glue your smarty phones to your foreheads. You know, another thing I want to kind of get at right now, our previous chief was notorious for burning community leaders and activists. He did this, it just really didn't matter. You could be a homeless advocate, you could be the head of the NAACP. Eddie just blew smoke up you the entire time. It was shocking. I sat down with that man many different times. I sat down with the upper brass, trying to get them to implement complaint systems, save homeless people's property, get them their RVs back, protect their rights. It was just all a big scam. And at that time, that records department was ran by you, Chief Mata, and you guys implemented a policy that said we no longer issue property releases and it's up to the discretion of the tow companies. These tow companies are crooks. Chief Mata, you can pull the permit today. They're providing false information to the city, the county via subpoena, and you need to do the right thing. I'm just so concerned this isn't going to pan out. We need a blue ribbon commission. I think that's fantastic. And start getting a hold of all the other community members that Garcia burned. I think it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Jayla Robinson.
Hi, how are you doing? So thank you for hearing my public comment. I'm a member of Sacred Heart's Racial Equity and Community Safety Committee and also a resident of District 3. I'm going to be echoing a lot of the previous commenters. We have heard time and time again that police officers are not equipped to handle certain calls, and this could be calls that involve mental health crises, domestic violence calls, or just in relation to the unhoused. So it is essential for San Jose to think more broadly about ways to improve community safety so as to give more power and responsibility to the community than to the police in these cases, since they are not suited for them and not trained for them. The Reimagining Community Safety Task Force has clearly failed, and it's been hobbled by issues of race and just a lack of focus that has caused a walkout of Black and Brown leaders, as you guys have seen. If San Jose truly wants to improve the safety of the city for all the residents, then I do think that they should invest in an independent blue ribbon commission that will have the freedom and the budget to think big. And this is how we will be taking the first steps to providing true security for the most vulnerable people in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. And then next three speakers we have is Tiffany Macias, Sparky Harlan, and then Blair Beekman. Tiffany, you're next.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Tiffany Maciel, and I'm a lifetime resident of San Jose. I grew up on South 22nd Street, and I still live in the North Side, District 3 with my family. I was invited to be on the advisory group, and I share many of the concerns and many of the hopes of the other members of the group. I want to thank the city team. I think that you worked hard to provide space for as many voices as possible, and as recognized that that was going to be difficult, and it was difficult. I also want to weigh in hope that something reforms and there's some sort of collaboration between the city, the police department, and the community. I think more autonomy, if whatever helps leaders in the community feel better, that would help this group run more smoothly. But I also think it's really necessary to work with the police and the city so that we have access to data, especially around current policies, when current police department policies. Whether we call it an advisory group or a blue commission, I have faith that the city manager's team and the Office of Racial Equity will ensure that all voices are heard and represented. I especially was happy to see that someone was brought on to represent and raise awareness about the intersection of disability with law enforcement and how children with invisible disabilities are most impacted and most vulnerable to the school to prison pipeline. So I look forward to this moving forward, and thank you.
Thank you. And next up is Sparky Harlan.
Hi, you all hear from me quite a bit these days. 3 points. I'm one of the 50 members on this Reimagining Community Safety. What can you do with 50 members? It's not really a group that can make decisions. I would suggest multiple focus groups, small groups where you have people who can provide input and be heard, and some kind of steering committee then can make decisions. So you get everybody's voice involved. The second issue has to do with the reforming policing. You may be aware that we had a major police incident a week ago at our drop-in center, surrounded by police cars, search warrants issued, police sneaking on our site to arrest somebody. It's not how Bill Wilson Center wants to work with the police department. In some ways, if we can reimagining police safety with Bill Wilson Center, we can solve some of these other issues. But having said that, when you brought the point up of how can the community deal with public safety on their own, I had a call right after I spoke to the city council from somebody in Japantown that are doing community safety patrols with seniors. And they asked us for training on de-escalation tactics and also on mental health first aid. Those are the kind of things I'm talking about the community wants to do. That's easily stuff people have been doing for decades. It's a way a community can take back their safety and be involved without police needing to do this work. So I urge you to put some money behind it and not just talk that you may do it. You're putting money into every other category. Give it a bucket of money, saying this is what we're going to put as a starting line for reimagining public safety. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up is Blair Beekman.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Just thank you for your patience in putting up with myself over the past few weeks. I've been trying to hammer a few points home, and oh my gosh, everybody is here today. You're talking about a great item, and as city government, it is inviting, the good people of our community to, and yourselves to work together to ask questions, like the most important questions of our future, our real future. Reimagine and equity and defund are ideas about, we're addressing the prison military technology industrial complex. And we're at a time to question its future, to honestly question it. Thank you for this dialogue. I can't say that enough. Man, this is just awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so with that in mind, I've been trying to bring up over the past, few weeks, there is an element, there is a component that there's a possible natural disaster worries that we have to be considering in the next few years in San Jose and the SF Bay area. I hope, my words here can be, I don't know how accurate my words are, but if they are, it can be a tool for all of us to make this subject more open to talk about. And, we can discuss how we build the future of Reimagine at this time with possible natural disasters coming up. It allows that conversation to happen. So, good luck how you can do this, and thank you. I think we can do it. I think it's a conversation that can actually be of incredible help for the entire Bay Area at this time. And what we do here can have a great help for other Bay Area communities at this time. So good luck in all of our efforts and what we develop toward the ideals I've spoken about earlier. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the next three speakers are Reverend Ray, Liz Finney, and then call-in user 1. So next up is Reverend Ray.
Sorry about that. I was having problems unmuting. Hello, everyone. First, I'd like to thank Angel for this process, which takes courage because no one should be left in a position to do something that has never been done. particularly in our political environment here in San Jose. So I want to thank him for his attentive leadership. Second point I want to make centers around the catastrophe and failure of this reimagining process. And I'd like to say thank you for allowing it to fail, because what it does, it points out some things that individuals did not have the courage to create a narrative that gives us a pathway forward. One, the city council has to be able to name the issues. So if I were to line up city council one by one and ask them where they stood on anti-racism, being able to name anti-Blackness and within the community, as well as our entire BIPOC community, it would let you know where they stand relational to their political positions. But so this failed process allows us to establish the political collateral for the council that are preparing to move forward in their future. So what's missing in this process, what's needed, is the centered voice of the people who experience the pain. And in these calls, you're going to see that missing. So our pathway forward must be centered in the voice of the people. Our pathway forward must be having a true narrative that has a courageous undertone and overtone by city leadership to name why we're in this position and how we're going to move out. And the best way are these individuals that are part of the CBOs who have the courageous ability to connect us to the people who are closest to the pain. So I hope that you're listening, and your future political process depends on this, and we're counting on you to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Liz Finney.
Hi, everyone. My name is Liz, and I want to thank the council for hearing my public comment. I am also a member of REX from Sacred Heart, and I am also here to advocate for a Blue Ribbon Commission around community safety. We were told that the Reimagined Community Safety Task Force would help address certain problems in our community, but as we've heard, a lot of the leaders walked away because of a lack of direction and a lack of focus on police reform. And without a focus on police reform, how can we make the changes needed for our communities to be truly safe? So if public safety is a priority for the council, we ask that you transition the task force into a Blue Ribbon Commission and expand its budget. This commission would be led by community members who would assess the needs of the community, right? They would have more insight, and they would be able to bring those proposals forward about what programs and services are needed. Reimagining community safety is possible, as we've seen with several other cities that were mentioned in a previous comment. So I urge the council to transition the task force into a Blue Ribbon Commission and put decision-making power back into the hands of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up is call-in user 1.
Yeah, I'd just like to, let Chief know, let everybody know listening that the police department just doesn't harass people of color. They harass people of every color. I've seen the behavior of this police department. They think that they're TJ Hooker when they're really Reno 911. And, they act. San Jose PD likes to act like they're doing you a favor even when they're giving you a traffic ticket. That's illegible, by the way. Not only do they not know how to turn their lights on, their headlights. They know how to turn the lights and siren on. They know that switch, but the one for their headlamps, they don't know. I've seen it numerous times. I mentioned it to Chief Mata the other day. I hope he put out a memo, Chief. And some of these people are making $500,000 or more in salary and overtime benefits. I want every listener to look up what San Jose PD officers make. Once they've got a little bit of rank or some hash marks on their sleeve, these guys are making money. Don't think that they're not making money. And when they tell me that they're not, I've got the world's smallest violin for all of them. Every single one of them. They've all got houses in Tahoe and Maui. Yeah, they're really it's hard times here for them, isn't it? So yeah, they need to reimagine how to treat people properly, not to have smug and arrogant attitudes, and learn how to write. These guys don't know how to write. They don't know how to talk either. You ever get approached by a cop in San Jose when they're going to engage you? I love that one. They're engaging me. ID, IDK. What the hell is that? IDK. Can I see your identification, please? We have some questions for you. IDK, IDK. Who teaches them to?
Okay, next up is Robert Aguirre.
Yeah, this is Robert Aguirre here. I'd like to make sure that this committee or commission or whatever you're going to call it has enough people that have been victimized by the police department to have their voice heard. And you know, in particular, I represent or try to represent the unhoused population. And it's always a concern of mine to make sure that that voice is being heard. Because so many times or so often they're not part of the conversation, and people make decisions for them without really involving them. I would like to thank you for your efforts on trying to get the sanctioned encampments going. I think that was a great idea, and we needed to bring it back, and I know you will. And hopefully you'll reach out to me or some of the other advocates to, again, provide the support, the actual lived experience, and the knowledge, and bring all that in so that you have true representation every step of the way for the people that are being affected by this. And it's not just the unhoused, but other people that also have been singled out. And to that last guy that spoke and said that people of color are not being singled out, didn't sound like he was a person of color. So it's very difficult to stand on the side and not experience that sort of thing. And Raul, I think you know what I'm talking about. So if we could get more representation, and I've also been pushing, I know this is not the city of San Jose's responsibility, but a court specifically for unhoused people that are facing different situations that housed people do not face on a daily basis. And also I want to continue to push for a commission or some sort of group that does represent the unhoused people, so that we can review any decisions being made.
Thank you. And next up is Azita Shakib, and then last up on our list is Marco Antonio Aguila.
Yes, hello. Thank you for hearing my public comment. I'm a member of the Sacred Heart's Racial Equity and Community Safety as well. And I'm calling in today to request for the formation of a Blue Ribbon Commission to discern how to reallocate police funds, specifically for our unhoused population of color, and to build adequately run communal and social services that would promote and empower the unhoused population of color in terms of building their capacity and enabling them to become members of society that could contribute to the city of San Jose. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And our last public speaker is Marco Antonio Aguila.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marco. Thanks for hearing my comment. I guess since I'm last, I'm just going to say this real short. I kind of agree with everything that's been said so far. The Blue Ribbon Commission, the no confidence or the lack of confidence in really getting anything else alternatively done. So yeah, I'm not really going to chew you out for that because it's already happened. But yeah, I support all that. I support what people have said so far. And I really hope that something can be done collaboratively at best. But yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll bring it back to our committee and just say thank you, Angel, for the presentation. I know we had this on the agenda for an update. I don't think we could have expected the timeliness of the importance of having this conversation, considering what has happened now with the advisory group. But I think it's important, clearly, that we're able to have this conversation today, and then be able to provide some direction, and ultimately have a more elaborate conversation at the full council, which this is slated to be referenced to, and I believe that's June 8th, and so we'll have that opportunity there. And as we heard with Dr. Armeline, that there is a conversation happening now between a lot of the stakeholders that have walked out. And I believe he said they'll be meeting next Tuesday, and they're kind of finalizing, I think, some recommendations that they may want to bring to us. So I think without seeing those today, we can provide some commentary, but I think those would be important for the council to be able to take a look at, and staff, obviously, before the June 8th meeting. So then that way we can decide how best to move forward. But obviously, I have some thoughts as well that I'm happy to share here. I'll turn it over to my colleagues first. So I'll turn it over now to Vice Mayor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. And Angel, I'm sorry I missed your presentation, but I'm sure you did an amazing job presenting. But obviously, Angel and I have had numerous conversations, as well as talking to the community, and it is evident to everyone that the process, as it currently is designed, is not working. A clear direction would be to separate the two initiatives. So reimagining community safety is one initiative, which we gave council direction to pursue, and police reform is another initiative. So they should clearly be separated and have two different groups, whether we call them a blue ribbon commission or advisory committee, or however we want to define it. They need to be two separate groups with two separate agendas and objectives and outcomes. Another question that came up is in terms of how much autonomy should that group have. And Angel, I'm reading the memo and actually going through the presentation, and even in our discussions, I'm still not totally clear in terms of the potential concerns that you have around a steering committee approach versus an autonomous group. Can you kind of elaborate on some of your concerns in terms of outcomes if we have a purely autonomous group that's formed?
Yeah, Vice Mayor. So the structure that we were rolling out, and keep in mind, we were only at meeting 3, so the threshold of tolerance for that was pretty short, right? If we were going to be perfectly candid, so we never even really got to rolling out the actual process and structure. The process and structure that we had intended, it involved the formation of a steering committee, community-led leadership, and breaking this work down based on themes that the advisory group self-identified, right? We didn't want to lead or prescribe the working areas, right? And so that was the preliminary thinking. In terms of some of the feedback around other models, whether it's a Blue Ribbon Commission or a fully autonomous group, I think that can work too. I really do. If it's facilitated the right way, and if it involves the right stakeholders, I think that's an equally great approach, right? I think what we would have to really determine is what is the connection between this autonomous group and the city, especially as it relates to ultimate recommendations being formed and then ultimately presented to the mayor and council. Is there any parameters set on that? Are there none? What is the focus? Even within police reform, even the word police reform is such a loaded word with different connotations to different people, right? So, but as we've talked to a number of different groups, you know, I think the two things, you know, we keep hearing is one, we want to make sure that this work is centered around community voice, and we agree on that 100%, whether it's the city process that we've designed or whether it's a blue ribbon kind of fully autonomous group. And then the second one is that this work also be rooted in the actual needs of residents that live here in San Jose, that are especially in areas that are very impoverished and dealing with a lot of high crime. We've heard that loud and clear from residents, that they want to make sure that this captures their voice as well. Many feel that it's not capturing their voice sufficiently. So right now, those are kind of the two options that have emerged, this autonomous group. Oakland has a semi-autonomous group. Austin, same thing. I think it just really comes down to how you define people's roles, and whether by autonomous we mean, is there a budget attached to it or not? What is the leadership structure? What is the decision-making structure? And ultimately, what are the end outcomes of the group? Those are all the details that I think we would need to kind of really hash out.
So whether it's autonomous or not, I mean, they're still going to require a budget. They're going to still require access to city personnel to get information. Probably would need some administrative or staff support as well.
Yeah, I think all those are true. I think of it, you know, I would imagine, and again, I don't want to speak for anybody. You know, I haven't seen any of the proposals yet myself, but I would say that everything that you just described would be true. Is what my speculation would be.
Okay, and then another issue that was brought up was the police involvement in the process. Setting expectations. If we don't have police involvement in the process, is there a potential to set unrealistic expectations in terms of whatever recommendations come out of that blue ribbon commission or steering committee that would not be easily adopted by or have a positive reception by the city, receiving those recommendations and the viability of implementing those recommendations?
Yeah, I think this is a real touchy subject, and one of the things, you know, we have reached out to Austin, we've reached out to Oakland, we've reached out to Atlanta, we've talked to a number of cities that are doing this work, and actually it's not a whole lot of cities that are doing this work, and because this is very difficult work, right? But the one common theme that we have received back from people from different perspectives, whether it's a community representative on a task force in Austin, or whether it's somebody from city administration, we've heard that it is important to include police as a stakeholder, and the thinking being that, you know, especially as it relates to recommending the transformation of or change around any culture related to the police, or even the implementation of maybe a new community police standard in terms of how that relationship takes place and plays itself out in everyday life, really should involve the very people that would have to be implementing this. And so we have heard that loud and clear from all those other cities that, you know, it is very important to do it. And in fact, we've also been advised strongly to the effect of, if you exclude police, then that actually hinders the ability to implement good cultural change. Now, having said that, it doesn't necessarily mean that the police department needs to lead any of these efforts. You know, what we're hearing is they should be involved. And so I think even the involvement of police, you know, could be strategically, you know, scheduled as part of this process. But in my personal opinion, I do believe that police should be at the table, because I think that's, you know, when you're dealing with perspectives that are colliding, you end up with a stalemate. And in my experience, the only thing that breaks a stalemate is when you explore shared opportunity. And I think we have an opportunity here to really set really define a new standard around community and police relationships, because clearly in many sectors of our community, those relationships are strained, not in all. And so, in my opinion, I think there's an opportunity here to really hit a reset button and really embark on new relationships between the police and community.
Great. So what I'd like to see, Angel, is for staff to come back with direction to separate the two initiatives, reimagining community safety and police reform, and then define what the police reform process looks like in terms of, and you could even present multiple options. So an autonomous option and what that looks like and the budget behind that, as well as any potential challenges or roadblocks or issues that are associated with that. And the same with a steering committee format. It gives us those two options with the pros and cons. So that's what I would be looking for. And again, the budget that's associated with both those efforts.
Okay.
And so thank you, Angel, and your team for all your hard work. And that's all my questions, Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Jimenez.
Yeah, thank you for all the good questions, Vice Mayor. Appreciated that. And I think your recommendation is well placed, and look forward to receiving the information. I can understand the dynamics around maybe, and I don't think we fully vetted out exactly what's been said as it relates to, or the pushback as it relates to police involvement, but it seems to me that their involvement would be important. It's just more a discussion around what the role is, right? And how they would be utilized through the process. So anyway, I see value in that. Angel, I just had a few questions around, if you can take me through to help me understand, because I wasn't following these meetings, these 3 that have occurred or 2 that have occurred. I wasn't watching them. I didn't have staff, watching them all that closely. And that's assuming even, they were open to the public and they were televised or whatnot. I'm not even sure about that, but can you take me through sort of the format of the meetings that have taken place to date? Like, how does that play out?
Yeah, sure, council member. So we've had 3 meetings to date, and really the first 2 had to do with onboarding and setting the stage, right? And going into these meetings, we thought, number one, we knew just having any conversation around community safety is already a very challenging thing to do, right? But we wanted to lean forward on this. We also felt very strongly that just given the chain of events that have been happening all around us nationally, statewide, and here in our local city, that we had an opportunity to really address some of these issues in a way that leads to transformative change. And that's really the spirit that we brought to this. We also knew that we needed to make sure that we have the right voices around the table. We also knew we were taking a big risk with having such a big group, but keep in mind, what never materialized and was definitely literally the next thing was we weren't going to be meeting with 46 individuals at one time. Anybody knows that running a meeting of that size is just ineffective and inefficient, right? You gotta give us the benefit of the doubt to know that we know better than that. The goal, though, was to basically take the 46 strong voices, established leaders, and collectively go through a discovery phase that would identify what are the key issues that we need to identify that would result in enhancing community safety in our city, like now, right? And letting that process and having the groups ask for data and the right information and the right speakers and the right lived experience, anecdotes, to kind of formulate the actual working groups that we would then break up into, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was the actual thinking. We never got there because by the 3rd meeting, the interest to really address police reform, and I totally understand it. It is a valid concern. I understand that, but from day one, it was not about leading with police reform. It was about really taking advantage of the opportunity to how can we enhance community safety and find alternatives now. Again, at the same time, we heard loud and clear that, well, before we even have that conversation, we want to address police reform. And I respect that view and I respect that perspective. And so the first two meetings really, it was about grounding the group. It was about, we spent time really listening to folks in terms of what does reimagining mean to them. We didn't go into this with any prescribed notion of what this should be. And it was really around tapping into the expertise of this group so that we could begin to define and draft a shared vision of community safety. And then within that, the findings of that was going to drive the structure around how we do our work together over the next 6 months, leading to recommendations to the mayor and council. At the third meeting, and again, this is, context is everything. This is a couple of days after the verdict. You know, there was a shared reflection piece to open up the meeting. And what was initially scheduled to be a 15 to 20 minute session turned out to a 77-minute conversation. And again, keep in mind, there's a lot of frustration, anger, you name it, for good reason. You know, so there is some significant, you know, we're addressing issues of systemic racism. We're addressing issues of trauma. We're addressing issues of inequity. We're addressing issues ultimately of poverty. And a lot of this is kind of, you know, coming to a table with diverse perspectives. And sure enough, those perspectives collided. Yeah, and in retrospect, we probably could have done more to kind of pull that conversation back. But at the same time, we also know that that conversation is part of framing this issue if we're going to do it the right way, right? But ultimately, the goal was to take these issues, frame them, translate them into action for implementation. But that's as far as we got in terms of those three meetings.
Okay, and just to your point about the diverse perspectives colliding, I think with a topic as dynamic as this and as important as this, right? I think you know, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. You know, I think I think it was MLK who talked a little bit about this tension that exists, right? And it's not always necessarily bad tension, right? It's tension that's necessary to start moving things forward. And so I think it's very relevant to this space, right? That people are going to feel uncomfortable. People are going to go to their sort of their sides of the room, if you will, and go to their corners. And so I wasn't surprised to hear that. I was surprised more than anything just on, you know, it didn't seem like this was going on, these meetings, that is, that we had many of them. And then in a sense, you know, from the public sort of eye, it fell apart, right? And so the other question I have is there were many signatories to some of, I think it was one or two of these letters that came out. There was 46 members of the group, right? Do we have a sense as to, and I didn't count the signatures, but and maybe someone from the public knows this, but how many of the folks that are part of the whole 46 signed on to one or two of these letters? Do you have a sense? Was it the majority? Was it 75%? Was it?
Yeah. So of members of the advisory group, and I may be off one or two, about 16 of the members officially resigned, whether it was through the initial letter. Now, there was also many more signatories to that second letter. Like, for example, the letter written by Poncho and his organization, there were 5 members of the advisory group that signed that letter. The other signers were not on the advisory group, but they signed on in solidarity, right?
Okay, I get it.
So yeah, so about give or take 16 members of the 46 resigned from the advisory group.
Okay, all right. And does it make sense, just going back to Councilman or Vice Mayor Jones's comments, to bring back, you know, when this comes back, I think on June 8th or whatever that date is, you know, separating it and creating 2 tracks essentially? Does that make sense to you, or do you expect that, you know, some of the folks and concerns that you've heard from some folks that is not going to be well received, or do you think that makes sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. And you know, I think just preliminarily, I think it does make sense to kind of either bifurcate these issues, because a police reform conversation is, although it's very interrelated to looking at other alternatives around de-emphasizing police and others, it's still a distinct conversation that leads to a different path, right? So that aspect of that recommendation, I believe makes sense. I'm also very interested in learning more about the proposal that Bill spoke about, because I will tell you this, council member, that despite the resignations, the majority of individuals that were on the advisory group that have left, and even those that weren't on it but have signed on, have been in contact with us, and many of them want to re-engage, right? So this isn't something that I think is I think it shows that there is significant community interest in really wanting to do this work. But the scope of it is so important, because even within those groups, and even within those perspectives, and even with the remaining advisory group members, which and I would say there's probably a group of over 20 that have also made it very clear that, look, they completely appreciate and understand the importance for police reform, but they want to make sure that their neighborhood issues are addressed. And although they sympathize and empathize with police reform, the need for police reform, they're basically saying, I want to talk about the lighting in my neighborhood. I want to talk about the gunshots that are going off at 3 a.m. in my neighborhood, and I want to talk about my kid who's strung out on drugs, and what are we going to do about it? And so we're having to reconcile those very divergent perspectives, and you know what? And both perspectives are right, because we have to address police reform. And we also have to address issues of neighborhood safety, right? And look at things differently. One thing I did not say in my presentation that I probably should have, in hindsight, is that, one of the reasons why we lean forward around even renaming this around reimagining community safety versus reimagining public safety is that we feel that in addressing issues of community safety, we don't always have to lead with a police response. It definitely should include a police response in terms of the overall, police or public safety strategy, right? Somebody shoots somebody, God forbid, or whatever. There needs to be a response with high-level crime, but there's a lot of other work that can be redirected if we just do things differently, right? And that was really the thinking and the spirit for entering this work. But again, 3 meetings into it, the demand for police reform just outweighed any other intention.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for all that. I appreciate it. And I think what you just described is that tension within some of these communities, right? And they're all around the city, right? Whether it be Round Table, whether it be Cadillac, is you got folks, and I suspect most, if not all, I think the whole council agrees with this, and I think it's very logical and reasonable to think that we need police. Police serve a purpose. Right? But also, we as a community, and I think us as council members, want things to be done in an open, transparent way, and where folks that are doing wrong things, as if they're police officers, that they're held accountable, right? So that's where that conversation about police reforms comes in, and that's where that challenge and that tension exists. I guess one of the things that I think would be helpful when you bring this back, because I imagine based on some of this input, is it safe to say you may have like a supplemental memo or something to go forward, assuming you even get some of the recommendations from some of the groups that are putting out sort of ideas as well? Is that safe to say?
Yeah, I think it is safe to say. I think from what I'm hearing, based on the input received to date, and the recommendation that Vice Mayor Jones just set forward, if that direction is approved, I would say we would definitely look at what those models would look like. And then I also think we need to stay open to evaluating the proposal that Bill and folks that he's working with have as well, because I think there may be some great ideas there too. And perhaps it's either, recommending one over the other, or perhaps there's a hybrid or a fusion of multiple ideas. I really think the next few days, the next week, will be really important, right? This is important work. We're all committed to it. There's great community passion around this. And it's work that needs to get done. But yeah, I would say that there probably would be either a supplemental or at least some recommendations, some models that the council can consider.
And the reason I was asking that is I think, for those of the council members on the call, we know, and I'm sure, Mr. Armeline and many folks on the call already know that there are some challenges that we have as a city in implementing certain things as it relates to reforms. You know, I'm sure there's many things that I don't know them all or pretend to know them all, but there's some things that I think are challenges to implement as it relates to reforms, again, because the Police Officers Bill of Rights and other sort of state protections that exist, or even negotiations with bargaining units, right? That happens in closed session. And so what I would say is, and I'm not sure exactly where this would take place as it relates to your supplemental recommendations or memo, I should say, or where in the process, maybe after we start going down a path, a different path or whatever that may be, but maybe having a sense for us as to what we as a city can do and what we as city officials can do as it relates to accountability in one lane, and then in another lane, what are things that are sort of prohibited given current laws that prohibit us from going down certain paths, right? And so I think creating that delineation as to what's possible, what's not, I think is a good, to a certain extent, a good frame of reference for us as it relates to the guardrails that are there, right? But that being said, I also don't think that the conversations as it relates to however this group continues into existence, whether some of the folks rejoin or they, you know, there's a different type of process here. I think they should sort of have a blank slate of sorts to throw things against the wall and recommend everything under the sun, being cognizant of these restrictions that we have in implementing some of these things, but not sort of holding them back as it relates to some ideas and things of nature, things that they may have that may be helpful. And so I think that balance is going to be important, right? What's possible, and also matching that with letting folks run wild as it relates to ideas and things of that nature. So I think that's going to be challenging. With that in mind, one of the questions I have is, can you tell me a little bit about, like, I know the Blue Ribbon Commission, I know that's been thrown out. I think even Vice Mayor Jones mentioned that. How would that be formed, and would that take a majority vote of the council? Or if you can share your experience around that, Angel. I know you've been in the city a little while and you've probably seen some of these come and go. I know the purpose of them, and you know they typically tackle a particular question and are charged with really investigating things and coming forward with recommendations. But can you touch on how that would work?
Yeah. In that scenario, and I'm not 100% clear on all the details, but that's basically a process that the county ran with respect to the sheriff's department, and that was a community-driven process, a self-designated or a identified. It was run and facilitated by community leadership. They had access to a consultant that assisted with not only running the meetings but you know, providing any information. And so that is one of the models that has been presented, and I think it can be a good model. All right, you know, it can be a good model if you bring the right people around the table, have the right conversations. I do think there does need to be some level of without setting parameters that would restrict conversation, because I think that wouldn't be a good thing. But I think there does need to be kind of a managing the expectation as to what type of recommendations would eventually evolve, because one of the things that Austin and Oakland and Atlanta and all these other cities that have been, referenced earlier, one of the biggest challenges they're having is, you know, the recommendations that are coming forward are really good recommendations, but not all of them are financially feasible, right? And that's what now councils are grappling with in terms of, okay, great recommendation, but this is going to require me to redirect funding from, you know, budget A to budget B in the amount of X, you know, you put the number in, and that's a very difficult challenge, right? I'm not placing a judgment on that recommendation or those recommendations one way or the other, but I do think we need to go into this with eyes wide open. I would be a fan of not, you know, putting too many parameters on any group, so that, like, as you said, they can, you know, whatever this autonomous group would have, they'd have the liberty to kind of frame and come up with recommendations to any issue they want to identify. But I do think there needs to be some level setting around what is the accountability or reporting back to council, perhaps in an interim fashion, whether it's back through to this committee or to the full council. And then secondly, a conversation around, you know, what's a viable recommendation or not, right? Otherwise, you'll have a lot of people that invested a lot of time only to find that, you know, their recommendation ultimately may or may not get funded, right? And
Yeah, well, that's why I think it's important, whatever process, whatever road we go down, to have as much clarity as possible, even what you just described, right? I think sharing something like that and like, look, we're going to let you run wild, spitball, throw out ideas, irrespective of the cost, whatever it may be, put them out there. And in the end, it's going to come to the city council, and we're going to evaluate whether, well, one, can we do this? Can we afford it? Is this possible? Things of that nature. I mean, I'm even thinking about assuming something like that happened and we formed a Blue Ribbon Commission, whatever it may be. I think what would be interesting to me is let that commission or body run wild, come up with ideas. They submit their recommendations in a document, right? Saying this is what we think should happen here in the city of San Jose. And then staff then provide their view as it relates to those recommendations, the possible challenges or opportunities. And that would include obviously the police department's perspective as well, right? I think that's important. And then that comes to us, and then we conduct a full evaluation as to what's possible, what do we think is worthwhile, what's important, what can we do, you know, can we alter this or tweak that way and do it there? And so that just, you know, just thinking off the top of my head seemed to be a reasonable sort of approach to this. And I think that would allow folks to sort of have, you know, free reign to really brainstorm as to what's possible, right? Thinking about what's going on across the country. Some of it may apply, some of it may not, but I think there may be some value in that. So those are all my questions. The only other thing I would say is, you know, I'm looking at the screen in the Hollywood Squares that is Zoom, and I'm seeing Chief Mata there sitting very quietly. And I'm wondering, Chief, you know, I know we haven't asked you any questions, but is there anything you want to share just about the process or your thoughts? I know you're not new to the department, but new to the role, and I'm wondering if you wanted to share anything you wanted to say.
Sure, thank you for the opportunity, Councilmember. Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said, is that we need to involve the community and two distinct issues, both police reform and reimagining community safety. So we need to hear from both sides and to see how we can move forward together. We know, and like Angel had mentioned, acknowledge the need to improve, hold our officers accountable. But at the same time, we have to provide a service, and what that service looks like, you know, we need to, you know, get the input of the community, and as has been mentioned, the voices of those communities that have been impacted. So I'm open to having those discussions and that dialogue, because we need to improve our services.
Wonderful, thank you. And you know, I don't remember if there was a motion or if you made a motion, Vice Mayor. So I'll wait actually, because I know Councilmember Peralez likely has a few things he wants to chime in on. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Councilmember Arenas.
Thank you, Chair. I chaired the committee this morning and got kicked off, so I'm going to keep my video off. So I apologize to everyone, but just wanted to let them know. I'm very much enthralled in this conversation. And as Councilmember Jimenez was speaking, I was reminded about the process that we went through as council members in advocating for race and equity and a budget that integrated race and equity. And I know you all remember that we took a stance, and there was a lot of that tension that Councilmember Jimenez was talking about. And it's okay, you know, sometimes we have to have friction, sometimes we have to have this tension, and sometimes there's fallouts. I certainly had some political fallouts because of that. So, but the one thing that continued was the conversation. And it was important that everybody was part of that conversation, that everybody participated, regardless of where we stood in terms of race and equity. I certainly have to recognize that the murders across our nation have created an opportunity for us to have this conversation in a way that our nation has never been able to have this conversation before, or at least maybe another points of time people have said the same thing. But I feel like we are turning a corner around Black and Brown lives and how we live in our communities. And so, and the reason I was bringing this up is because I want to make sure that we have all of the voices at the table. I think it's important to recognize that it is really hard, I think, to carry out your role when you're the one who's being criticized, or your role is the one that's going to change. And so I think it's important for our police department to have that seat at the table. Now, how that looks like is, and I think there's also another opportunity for some listening and healing sessions that I think, looking back, we can always say we should have, could have, but I think our city missed an opportunity to have these healing and listening sessions citywide, so that we could process some of those just incidents, qualms, questions, things of that sort. And some of those listening sessions, I don't know that necessarily would have to involve our police department. And so since that is missing, I feel like this is rising to the top because we haven't really asked our community for that feedback. I know that there's going to be community engagement in these, what sounds like 2 tracks. For me, I feel that even though it was presented as 2 tracks, I feel like police use of force is actually a product of reimagining the police department, and that it's not one after the other or independent of each other. And I would dare to even throw in other things. And I know, Jennifer, you have a whole work plan that probably is very complicated and looks really complex in terms of all of the memos that we've all submitted and the direction that we've given. I know that for me, I would like to also include the GARE process, of course, in this. In either one of these processes, and in reimagining the police, so that we can help, so that we can bring our community along in race and equity. We haven't, because of the pandemic, and we were just about to have these citywide conversations on race and equity, but we did nationally because of some of these incidents and some of these young folks and not so young folks going out in the streets and protesting, giving way for some of this conversation. So I don't know what that answer, the ideal answer is, but I do like what Vice Mayor suggested, is to bring back some options so that we could see what that looks like. But I don't want our options to be independent of these stakeholders. I want them to be integrated. And I wonder, when you all came to us in September and we talked about the police use of force, I don't recall hearing folks from this stakeholder group. And now I understand that I think our administration was treating these 2 things separately, these 2 areas separately. And to me, it feels like disjointed. And I have been expecting to hear from our stakeholders around some of the issues that are police related that have been brought to council since last year, but we haven't. It hasn't been integrated, and I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned that we've waited too long, and now our community is at the brink, and impatient, as they should be. and I'm characterizing it as impatient. I apologize if that's offensive to some of our listeners, but I'm impatient. Maybe it's reflective of how I'm feeling, because we've waited so long to have these conversations. I don't think we can't wait any longer. We just can't. We need to continue to move this process forward. If we really want to honor the engagement of these stakeholders, then let's honor what they're telling us. And let's integrate these two processes. I don't, and even though I agree with what Vice Mayor Jones said about bringing back analysis of the two processes, I'm open to seeing the data, but off the cuff, I don't know why they exist independently. They both fall under, I think, under one conversation. And I think reimagining police will, reimagining public safety will have many subgroups. And so that was going to be one of my questions. If we had these two separate processes, if we had the top three, I don't know, areas of concern in the reimagining public safety, what would those be? What would we be issue-based? How would we carry out that process that we wouldn't integrate the police use of force?
Yeah, Councilmember, the three issues that have really emerged is really around police accountability, use of force, and systemic racism within the police department. Those are the kind of the three themes that I heard, right? There were more issues that were raised, but those are the ones that I've heard the loudest and the more of. With respect to the use of force in 21st century policing, one of the things that from a process standpoint, so the independent police auditor is leading the review of the use of force and then a review of 21st century policing. What we did was we did draw a dotted line to this work here because, as you mentioned, it is interrelated. And so the thinking was that we would tap into the advisory group around reimagining to help inform and give feedback to that body of work, right? The use of force, 21st century policing. But so from a process standpoint, that's how the administration had planned on kind of coordinating and working that out together. Now, having said that, it kind of goes back to what do we do going forward? I think the good news in this overall conversation, and it's been a difficult one, I will be the first to tell you that it has been a difficult one, but it's an important one. But the first thing I would say is that the leaders around the table want to see transformative change, right? And so we just got to figure out what is the best avenue to get there. We're approaching this, when I say we, the city administration is approaching this from a perspective of not so much trying to win an argument, but to do what is right. And which is why we're completely open to an autonomous process. I do think there's an opportunity here to also model, community city partnership, right? Because I think we want to set that standard. That's also part of being a welcoming city, because city staff are also part of the community and vice versa, right? And but totally understand that as a potential structure, and under that structure, if we just had to kind of play this out, say if we went with an autonomous model with kind of a dotted line to the city, and by dotted line I mean with maybe some financial support in terms of consultant work or whatever that scope would be, as well as access to city data or data analysis, that kind of a thing. Under that model, you could potentially also bring in the reimagining conversation as well in terms of other neighborhood safety issues, right? So I don't think it has to be an either or. So that would be one model. The other one is to bifurcate them and kind of have an autonomous process that is going to focus exclusively on police reform, and then have another process that is going to deal with the more immediate neighborhood community safety issues and alternatives. But I will say, are completely open to all ideas right now. We're not going into this with any predetermined structure in terms of how it should look. It's more important for us that our community comes to the table. We want them back to the table. We want them all back at the table, because there's important work to be done. And we're trying to put our egos aside, at least I am. And because I will tell you, this has been a very difficult process. But I think we could do something good here.
Yeah, absolutely. I get a thing or two about putting your ego aside when, anyways, so, and I'm only laughing, context for folks who may not know me is I'm only laughing because I had a pretty difficult fallout. So, but it's okay. Because we're here to create systemic change, and we're here to support our community, and we are here to see those end results. And so as you were talking, Angel, I'm thinking, I don't know why it would make sense for for our department staff to carry on with two different processes when we are, when we're dealing with a recovery and still in supporting in real time some of the community members who are not vaccinated and are still battling COVID. Why would we carry on with two separate processes? Why not take advantage of the resources? And so, that is an avenue that I would be more supportive of is to integrate all of these conversations. I think when we separate our conversations this way, then we don't get the richness and the context of maybe the other areas that folks have been talking about if we separate them. And so, I really am going to go for integrating this path, and we all may in this committee feel differently about it. In the end, I think what we need to do is really, if we really want to listen to our community, we have to take some of this feedback and move on this feedback as with their guidance and direction. And so the last piece I'm going to say is, for our stakeholders, I want to share that I've had a really good experience with our police department around the area of sexual assault, and Jennifer McGuire has been supporting this process, and Chief Mata for about 3, maybe 4 years now, and it's a slow process. It really is. When you're creating systemic changes, which I think, Chief, you would agree that some of what we've done is going to create a different outcome for our survivors of sexual assault and intimate partner violence, that these conversations sometimes are slow. And sometimes we just really need to break down what these processes mean for each other, and agree on even terms and definitions and words that we use are just so important. And I think that's the part that I'm feeling like we're missing from our folks. We've skipped over a conversation around race and equity. And I don't know if, in lieu of all the protests and conversations that our community and our nation has been having on social media, on TV, on Zoom, and on calls or whatnot, if that takes the place of what we were originally going to do for race and equity, in which we were going to pull in our community to talk about that. So I'll just say that, one, the process is going to be slow. That's just part of, I think, the nature of all of this, so that we can make sure we get it right. And in getting it right, we need to make sure that we listen. And so I'm going to support this integration of conversations. It makes sense to me. It makes sense to me, and we can continue to take a look at what those two viable options are. But as we were carrying on, Angel, I think I landed where I need to be, and that is in an integrated conversation. Because I know from my experience with our our police department. And when we're talking about sexual assault and systemic changes with the county, not just our system, but the county system, everybody was around the table. Our stakeholders were around the table, our survivors were around the table, and our police department and our detectives and our units were around the table. And so we really just need to integrate all these conversations. Anyways, that's my point of view, and I'll leave the motion to our chair, which I think will have the final word here.
Thank you, Councilmember Arenas, and yeah, thank you to staff for the presentation and to all of our speakers. I know we've lost a number of them, but thank you to our speakers for participating. And as well, I think just the overall idea that is being shared, and thank you, Angel, for making that clear, that we are very open and interested, right, in continuing the conversation, but doing so with everybody back at the table. I think it's important that we have that message be clear, that nobody has an ego here that's too big to say, no, we must, go forward. Clearly, we can't, right? That the process is broken, and we just have to accept that, and now figure out the best way to move forward and get our community stakeholders back in the room with us. And I think we have an opportunity ahead of us to be able to do that. And I will say, I do firmly believe we can both achieve police reforms in steps towards eradicating systemic racism and keep our community safe, that those are not mutually exclusive efforts. And as we're going down, as many cities are, these difficult conversations, I think we're to expect there to be some challenging times. And I want to speak a little bit about the process itself, because I think it also wasn't completely clear to me until I saw the letter from the stakeholders that decided to walk away and started to have conversations with a number of those advisory group members and get a better understanding of what had happened. I actually watched the final hearing, the last hearing in April, where things did get really tense, and then obviously after that, that's when the number of members decided to leave. And I was able to see the dynamic and some of the frustrations, the conversations that sparked those frustrations, and ultimately as well, I think the structure of the advisory group itself that was frustrating. And that's the first thing I wanted to speak to, because I know that we have a couple ideas here that have been shared at this committee. My recommendation is actually going to be a little bit more, what I'm going to ask this committee to move forward is a little more loose, because I think that we shouldn't jump to any real conclusion just yet on how we should move forward. I think we've heard that we have some stakeholders that are meeting next Tuesday that want to formulate a set of recommendations to be able to give to us. We know we have to refer this to the full council. So I'm not so convinced that we need to provide any kind of direction that says we should have two separate groups or what that further step should look like, but rather we keep it pretty open-minded, as Angel has said, and that we wait to hear some of that feedback, and then we formulate the best path forward after hearing that feedback. But I did want to point to something that was, I guess, more kind of information I was not totally aware of either. And I wanted to see, Angel, if you could speak to it. And it's a slide, and I'm going to share screen here. I believe I can. Maybe, Peter, am I able to share screen? Looks like I can. Can everybody see the screen? Great. Angel, can you walk us through, this was a slide that you showed at the last meeting there when you were trying to get to, as you said, what was an opening discussion meant to be maybe 15 minutes on sentiment around the verdict in the murder of George Floyd. that I think really there was only maybe one or two sentiments shared in that regard. And really the conversation spurred, as you point out, 77 minutes of back and forth dialogue. At the end of that meeting, you presented this slide and spoke to, I think that, what you felt that the scope of the advisory group work was going to be. And to what Councilmember Anenas was just saying, I also had not seen the police reform as far as police reform, use of force, 21st century policing. I also had not seen that as something that was outside of the scope of this, what we had asked for on Reimagining Community Safety Task Force or Advisory Group. I had not seen that as separate. I had seen them as together. I also will add that in my original memo, which you did point to in your memo for today's item, that spoke to the scope that you feel that you had for the advisory group. I felt that my memo gave that direction and latitude. Might not have been explicit, so maybe that was needed some clarity. But can you speak to what it was that you were presenting to the advisory group here on this slide, and what it was that you kind of were thinking on how they would participate in these conversations, since we do have clearly, right, a strong interest, and that was, I heard that right in that meeting, and now we've since seen that in the letters from those that have quit, that they really want to focus, some of them really want to focus on this topic of police reform. So can you speak to what was happening here with this?
Yeah, what we're trying to describe is the the council direction that we're operating under, and then kind of the structure and the focus of this work and how it intersects, right? So for starters, so back on June 9th and then at the special meeting on June 12th, there was after the mayor and council heard a lot of public testimony around different police issues, council basically, in response to those, the city administration put together a tracker that would kind of capture all the police reform, kind of loosely kind of defined all police reform issues. And there's like a list of 20 items. And in that list, number 12 on that list was reimagining community safety. And the focus in the context of reimagining was really around how do we broaden this conversation to look at, finding alternatives to policing as we look for options around neighborhood and community safety, right? And then also embedded in that work was the independent police auditor received direction from the mayor and council to, among other things, do two things. One, complete a use of force study by way of a consultant. And then secondly, to review the department's compliance with or adherence to 21st century policing strategies. So given those two roles, and we thought, and that added direction also included a stakeholder outreach to a broad cross-section of the community. Well, given that we were going to be convening a broad cross-section of the community, we thought, well, we could do a dotted line and basically have the very people, the advisory board, the advisory group that we have under Reimagining, also inform the IPA's work in those two areas, use of force and 21st century policing. But what we're trying to do is kind of carve out and specify that we're really focusing on these 4 areas of scope that are on the far left, right? Which is exploring alternatives to police with a very specific focus on non-criminal social conflicts, right? So like, can we do a better job of reaching out and working with mental health or behavioral health and responding to mental health episodes, as opposed to maybe having a police officer alone kind of respond, knowing that there's a propensity for escalation, right, and harm. And then with a third focus on really taking a look at community police partnerships and improving those partnerships, because we heard loud and clear during a lot of the public testimony that there was a need for that. And then lastly, to make sure that we prioritize that resident voice, the neighborhood voice, neighbors that were basically saying, look, I understand all this stuff is going on, but man, there's stuff happening in my own neighborhood right now that we need help with. So what we attempted to do was really kind of better define the focus of this work. And that's what we were trying to do with this, to add more clarification. The first invitation that I sent via email to every member of the advisory group had those 4 goals listed in there. And so from day one, we're, very, very clear about that. At the same time, I also know that there's a lot of terms here, and there's a lot of, it is difficult to even describe that internal process. And so I also can understand the miscommunication and the breakdown there, if I'm going to be completely objective. But that's what we're trying to do here, is really hone in on the focus of this group, and then point out where some of this other work is being done. And what we also did prior to both of these meetings, we sent out via email copies of all the previous memos, along with the attachment of the police reform work plan, right? Again, a lot of documentation, a lot of information, but we also, again, our commitment was to be transparent from day one about what this is and what this isn't. I went back and looked at kind of my talking points in terms of when I first opened up the first session. And again, I think I was pretty clear on setting the focus, but having said that, that doesn't change the fact that there was a strong interest in just addressing police reform more head on. And I understand it and respect it.
Okay, so just to be clear, it sounds like, right, there were two separate processes already. We had the Reimagining Community Safety with this scope that's here on the left. And then we also had the police reform issues work that we've directed as well. And your intent was to, rather than create a whole new advisory group around the police reform issue, that you would also seek feedback from this same Reimagining Community Safety Advisory Group to provide some input on the police reform items, but that it would be kind of in and of itself, that police reform issue would be a separate, work plan, and not necessarily a main focus of the Reimagining Community Safety. And I know that's, well, first off, is that a correct interpretation?
Yeah, mostly. It was going to inform only two items on the police reform work plan: the use of force review and the 21st century policing. Only those two.
Okay, got it. So it wasn't an open it wasn't open suggestions on police reform. It was just those two.
That's correct.
Okay. So that's helpful. And I can stop this. So and I obviously, what I heard from the advisory group members that left, right, felt really constrained and thought that originally they would be able to provide commentary and feedback, and part of their focus would be on the police reform issues, and understand that when they saw that slide and fully maybe understood, or whenever they fully understood that wasn't going to be the case, right, that they were going to have a more narrow scope, and that the police reform issues were going to be we're going to be just those two areas of recommendation. I think, certainly what I've heard is that they're interested in, doing something different. Clearly, that's what we're hearing today. So again, I think I'm not completely sold that that this has to be done as two separate groups or conversations, but if that's ultimately the way that we go, I think I'm fine with that. I would like to hear from the recommendations that are going to be coming from the stakeholders that are meeting next Tuesday, and we'll see what gets brought forward. I think I think, as Councilmember Arenas was talking about as well, is there a way we can have one large umbrella or overarching effort that then in and of itself, as you were describing earlier, Angel, maybe could have a subgroup that is focused on police reforms. Either way, I think if we did it separate, or if we did it, in a subgroup, I think we definitely need to have the ability for our community stakeholders that are participating to comment on everything, not just, the 21st century policing, use of force, but that, anything, as Councilmember Jimenez was saying, kind of throwing it all at the table, right? And everything should be able to be discussed in there. That's what we want. We want, that authentic, unsanitized feedback. I know that's what I'm interested in, and I believe that's what my colleagues are interested in hearing. And so I think we can get that regardless if we ended up, however we move forward, if we did a separate effort, or if we continued with something that was more combined. And the reason I mention that is because certainly there is, I think there are issues that are going to be affecting both groups, right? So we may talk about police reforms, and those reforms may have implications on things that we're talking about in the reimagining community safety, or they will have implications on other professionals in the community, and so I think that's where there's a lot of overlap already, and so either way we're going to have to find opportunities to combine some of those efforts, whether they're separate conversations or separate efforts, or one and the same. And let me get to some of my other notes here. Sorry. So I know we're talking about, we have June 8th as the current being referenced this for full council. The likelihood is that if we did have another effort, or even if we're just restarting this effort that we have now, there may be a need for more resources, especially if we're going to change how we're conducting the meetings, if it is more like a blue ribbon task force. And we would need, whether it's an MBA, a manager's budget addenda, or some effort, right, to get something, a resource in the budget. And we're also waiting on maybe this feedback from stakeholders next week. Is that soon enough? Is June 8th? It sounds like that might be the sweet spot anyways, because we have to get the the budget and everything passed. But is that a good date for us to be aiming for?
Yeah. So it definitely, it's definitely a big lift, but I do think June 8th is what we should aim for, because for the reasons you mentioned, right? I mean, to the extent that we could work anything out prior to the adoption of the budget, and then we can incorporate this in this current budget year, I think that would be, a wise approach. Now, having said that, I think a very important next step really comes down to, I think, three things. One is if we could get kind of the formal direction on including police reform in this body of work, I think that would be very important, because then now that gives us the latitude to then negotiate with that in mind, right? Specifically, and then secondly, get a recommendation on the direction around the involvement or not of police. I think what will be important, because I think those are two of the biggest kind of sticking points, those two that I just mentioned. And then the third one, really as a next step, is really this meeting that we would have with the with Dr. Armeline and others around the proposal that they have. I will tell you this, that we did hold one meeting with Mika, who is representing the Black Kitchen Cabinet and the NAACP, Dr. Wong from San Jose State, who's has kind of a perspective around organizational structure and all, and then Poncho Guevara. I think convening that same group again post this meeting here, and the feedback and any additional recommended direction that we get will be very important, because I think between those groups and the additional feedback that we've been receiving to date from the advisory group at large will give us enough information to really hash out perhaps a model that we all could agree on. And if we can, then we could bring that to the June 8th meeting with a recommendation and a proposed budget, assuming that we could find agreement on that, right? I don't want to, I don't want to, speak for any of these other groups. And again, I haven't seen any of the proposal that Bill had mentioned, but I really think that's a key next step. And depending on kind of what that looks like, we may be able to iron something out between now and then. I think from a council memo perspective, we would have to post by, if I remember this correctly, it'd be like June 4th. So Jennifer or Peter, is that, I want to make sure I'm tracking right on the internal.
I think that would be okay for a supplemental on the side, since it's all been noticed. So we do need to make sure the agenda language, as Rosa has reminded me, make sure that it's maybe revised a little bit on the agenda, so it allows for this conversation in the direction from the council. One thing I do want to say is that I don't want the budget piece totally holding back, obviously, this issue, because I think it's going to be late for the budget process. The mayor's budget message will have been released and things like that. I want to remind the committee members that you did approve, I put in a request last fall for a bucket of money for police reforms efforts. You approved, we already had $100,000 for this effort, but you approved a bucket of 800,000 because of some of the more complicated things coming out of it. We're probably going to rebudget about $700,000 of that money. So as long as it's reasonable, we probably have some room in that pot to get going, and we could always come back as part of the annual report or in the mid-year for any other needs. But I think we have some room in there to as long as it's, again, within a reasonable amount that hasn't yet been needed. We are going to be using some of that money for the racial equity training of the police department. We're going to be using some of that money for the body worn camera audit. So I definitely have calls and needs of that, but some of them are going to be, especially like the body worn camera, it probably won't happen until the fall. So we can have time to sort that budget out. So I don't want that to be something that will inhibit us moving forward together as a group. So I just want to give you that confidence.
Thank you. And so, and that's helpful as well, as I had not recalled that. I recalled that we had put $100,000 for this Reimagining Community Safety Advisory Group. But you're saying we had an additional $800,000 specifically for the police reform issues.
Yep. And so again, there will be some things that we need to use it for. In fact, for example, the independent investigations of police misconduct, we're using that for that consultant. So some of these items that the public database for police officer actions, there will be uses of it along the way, but I am going to be recommending through the budget process to roll over about 700,000. So and we haven't had a call for all of that money, so we've got some room in there. And so I just want to make sure you're generous to give us that allocation, and I think that's for some of this.
Okay, good. That is positive. Yeah, I mean, conversations I was having with community members was that we had $100,000 for this process, but I had not recalled that we had that additional money for police reform, which now knowing that if this is the direction we're going to move is to include that, then we would have those resources to tap into as well. So that is helpful. And actually, I want to see, Angel, I don't know, can you pull your slide back up and go to those key decision points that you just brought up? Because I do think we can come to some terms here that this this committee can put forward some recommendations. And Rosa Sangtatari had mentioned that we need to maybe retitle it because it is just accepting, I think, the report at the moment. So I think maybe we can provide some recommendation out of this. Out of this committee.
All right, and that slide should be coming up soon here.
Yeah, it's the key decision points slide, and I think that I want to just be clear because I think we can get on the same page on this committee, and that would put a recommendation as we talk about this as a full council in June on how to move forward. Yeah, so here, and I'll ask my colleagues for feedback as well, but from what I've heard, I don't think there's any of us on this committee that are against expanding the scope to make it very clear that police reforms, and that, quite frankly, not just those two, not just the 21st century policing and use of force, but that police reforms, right, that topic in and of itself should be added to the scope. And then number two, we've heard a little bit of feedback from our colleagues here, but I am also comfortable with the idea of a more autonomous group, whether it resembles like a blue ribbon task or blue ribbon commission. But I do think, as I think it was Vice Mayor Jones was pointing out, no matter what, we're going to have some kind of involvement there. There's going to be a need for the city, I think, to be involved. So I don't know if fully autonomous. Right, if somebody wanted to do something fully autonomous, they could do it without our permission, right? So that I don't know if fully autonomous is really the right way to describe it, because somebody can go and do something fully autonomous and then come and provide a set of recommendations to the city, whether we tell them we are okay with that or not. So I think where we become involved is with what we were just talking about with funding support, right? Staff support, data support, and all of that sounds to me like it's that hybrid mix of a more autonomous effort than what we have today. And I'm happy to take feedback from my colleagues, but that would be where I kind of would be aiming towards. And then I would absolutely say, and I heard this from my colleagues too, but I'll ask for reiteration from them. I absolutely say that it's crucial that we have our police department part of the process. And so I think if we can get on the same page on those three topics, I feel like we can at least give some direction that would, answer those questions as we come to the full council and be able to talk about the next steps. And did have a couple more comments, but I want to kick it over to my colleagues just to see if there's any input on where we all stand on these three, key decision points, to see if what I described sounds more or less in line with maybe a motion somebody could make. And I see Councilmember Arenas with her hand up.
Thank you. So you wanted to get feedback, Councilmember Chair, about should the group scope be expanded to include, so integrated into one? Yes. Autonomy, I think I agree with what you just finished saying. The group could be completely autonomous, but then they would be separate from the city. So I think they need to be somehow integrated. And what that looks like, I'm a bit open on that. I'm really glad to hear you say, Jennifer, that there was some funding that goes along with this. I think is absolutely essential. The other piece that I think that needs to happen is for us to see the full recommendation from the council, because we've had a patchwork of recommendations beginning from last June. I know that I've put out a couple of memos, so have my colleagues here on this committee. And so I think what we need to figure out is how does all of those all of those recommendations blend together to provide direction? And if it isn't clear enough, then I think that that's where those recommendations need to go back to council for further direction. Do you currently have a kind of do you keep track of everything we say, Jennifer's getting down to?
Well, we try to do our best. But on the work plan, every referral that was related to this is noted verbatim, what date, what was the actual direction. So as staff, we can respond fully to you and carry out that direction. So
thank you. I really appreciate that. I think because this has for me been a bit disjointed, I forget what we've contributed, and I'm going to blame it on the pandemic, because the timing and my memory, it just feels all off. So it would be great to have it all in one place to provide direction. And then lastly, on the police involvement, I do think that it is appropriate for our police department to participate. I think there's moments where we may need, just a step back. Let's have a bit of a conversation just with community members. But I think for the most part, and for decision making, I think that our police department needs to be there. It is going to be uncomfortable. I'm not going to say it's not going to be. And as we recognize that some of this tension, it might get resolved at the end of this process, hopefully, whenever we come out of it on the other side, and a better city and better relationships for it. And so I do think that our police department needs to be involved now. To what level? I think it's up to our committee to help us decide. But I would say, at the very least, maybe in some of the sensitive listening sessions or I don't know, very limited number of sessions. But I think for the greater part of the process, I think our department needs to be part of it. Certainly not leading it, but being part of it.
Thank you. And Vice Mayor Jones?
Thank you, Chair. And kind of continuing Councilmember Arenas' discussion, there's a lot of moving parts. We haven't had an opportunity to really see everything in one place in front of us. And Angel, the motivation behind my recommendation was there's a lot of things that I just don't know, and I don't know what that looks like. So I believe that we should have police involvement, but I really don't know what that actually looks like. And I need I need your help and your team's help to define that for me. And that was one of the reasons why I made the recommendation. As far as being locked into any kind of framework, I'm not locked into anything. I just want to do what works. And if having a bifurcated process is the best path to go down, then I'm all in favor of that. If having a consolidated process is the best path, then I'm all in favor of that. But I've seen, based on the reaction from the members who have left, that there was a lot of disappointment that they weren't able to focus in on some of the key areas that they wanted to focus in on. And my concern is if we have a consolidated process, that a lot of the reimagining community safety issues and concerns will not be addressed, and they'll be kind of fall by the wayside because of these other priorities that members would have. So I just want to have the opportunity to see what it looks like. And that's why I made the direction request to have staff come back with different options. So I'm going to make a motion to direct staff to come back with the different options and to give us an assessment on what that looks like if we have an autonomous committee or a blue ribbon commission, or if we have a steering committee, what that looks like, and what are the ramifications of each strategy. So I want to make that motion, and hopefully I can get a second.
Vice Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
I was going to ask you if you could clarify, because I do like the analysis portion of it, although we are hearing that from these stakeholders that they want this integrated. So would you consider asking them to be part of that source of analysis that our staff connect with these stakeholders to also integrate their concerns or what they've experienced? Some of these folks are scholars in their own right, have merit us acknowledging what their experience lends to this conversation.
Most definitely. Yes. You had me at hello.
I love it. Why can't we end all of our committees this way?
But I will challenge one thing. I haven't heard that they wanted a consolidated process that incorporated both reimagining community safety and police reform. The feedback that I got was there was a lot of disappointment and concern about not focusing on specifically police reform. So that was the feedback that I got. Now, you might have gotten different feedback, but
yeah, I did get some feedback during this meeting. I apologize, Chair, for just jumping in. And I did get, we are not asking for a separate process for the two parts. So I think it's an integration of the two areas. Now, how that happens, whether it's autonomous or it's connected to the city, which I believe, connected to the city is the best option. But, I feel like that's part where we need to maybe get that committee feedback or stakeholder feedback.
Definitely. So I'll incorporate that as part of my motion.
Okay, great. And we do have a second. And then, I don't know, Councilmember Jimenez, did you want to chime in on these three topics that Angel was looking for some feedback specifically on the scope, the autonomy, and the police involvement? I know we heard a little bit already, but if you wanted to add anything, otherwise I'll pick up where I left off.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. I think everything that's been said, I'm in general agreement. And I also think that once this comes back to the full council, I think that's where we're going to hear just diverse perspectives on this. So I'm not interested in getting too prescriptive, but anyhow, I think everything that's being shared is important and has value, I think.
Great, sounds good. And I wanted to try to help Angel, right, as he's moving forward on the work. And I will actually say, I have heard conflicting, I think, interest, Vice Mayor Jones and Councilmember Arenas, from how individuals want to move forward. I don't know if it's necessarily, really in conflict as much as it's maybe context is a little bit confusing. I definitely have heard that there is an interest to want to, have a focused conversation on police reforms, and not necessarily that means that there couldn't be a conversation, conjoined in reimagining community safety, but that there really wants to be a focused conversation. Whether or not that's a totally separate effort or it's part of the same umbrella effort, I think there's a little bit of confusion there. And so I think we can iron that out, and I think we'll get some feedback from the stakeholders as they meet and then provide us that feedback hopefully next week. And so I can certainly support the motion as it is, to go forward and be able to get that feedback. I do think it is important, and Angel, you have heard that right, if the city's involved, if this is a process with us, that it is important and essential that our police department have a role in that process. Again, I'll reiterate, a fully autonomous process can happen without the city, involvement or support. And if somebody wants to provide recommendations to the city without the city being involved, without the police department being involved, nobody can stop them from that, right? And I think the council would be happy to hear, right, a list of recommendations that somebody might want to provide if they want to do that. But I don't think that's, that's our interest. That's certainly not my interest, right? We started down this process last year because we wanted to be engaged with our community. We wanted to do this together, right? We wanted to be able to have these conversations because we're letting the community know we want to hear it. We're receptive to this. We want to be able to hear this. We want these dialogues to happen. We understand they're difficult. And I will reiterate that I know it was mentioned, but we were at a bit of a delay because of just some of the nature of what was happening last year, because we were selecting a new police chief, and there was a delay in that that we were not planning for, and that sort of drew out the process. And we are now right at almost a year, and here we are where we've now decided to hit the pause button. And I understand how frustrating that can be, but I think we just have to accept it and be able to find the best way to move forward. And I really do appreciate that our stakeholders are wanting to do that. It sounds like, right, as you've been engaged with them, Angel, we've been engaged with them, right? They're here. They came here today to this committee to speak. Clearly, right, there's an interest to want to do this together. And so I'm obviously interested and excited about that as well. I wanted to point out a couple of things that we'd heard, and just to speaking to the importance of obviously having different voices and being able to have some of that information at the table as we're making some of these decisions. One of the comments was in regards to how we should be looking at things, and maybe this process can help us, right, get to a place where we are sending mental health professionals and medics to calls where people are experiencing a mental health crisis. And the reality is that actually is happening today. And this county of Santa Clara is discussing now about initiating a pilot to send specifically their behavioral health professionals and medics to calls. We had a presentation at this committee just, I believe it was 2 months ago, where we talked about the response from behavioral health. It might have even been last month, but where today, based on county behavioral health protocol, over 90% of the calls that they respond to, they go with an officer, and they won't go unless they have an officer with them. And that's their protocol. So, and that's, again, this is outside of if we said, hey, we want police reform in this regard. Well, in this case, it's not police reform, it's county behavioral health reform, and it's working with other partners. Hence why we had a bigger umbrella in the first place, because some of these things are really outside of our wheelhouse. But I would say it's been exciting to see the progress since last year that we've done with our behavioral health and mental health response. And now to see the county of Santa Clara looking at, they're basing it off the model called Cahoots. I believe it's up in Portland or Seattle. And they have this model there where they're sending specifically, again, behavioral health professionals and only medics, again, to certain calls. But that's stuff that's happening, and it is happening today, regardless of this task force work. Was my point, was that we don't need to wait for this advisory group or this task force to bring forward recommendations, right? These things are happening as we speak as well, and they have been since last year at the direction of the council and at efforts at the county. There was also a comment in regards to how maybe one of the goals was to have police no longer respond to particular domestic violence calls. And I know that was one of the first groups actually that reached out to me last summer when we talked about this reimagining policing, as I had stated it in my initial memo. And then obviously it's conformed to or formed into reimagining community safety. But I heard back from some of the domestic violence professionals that go out to these calls, and they voiced to me very strongly that they did not want to see officers removed from responding to those calls for service with them, and that they would not go to those calls on their own without a police officer. And they reached out to me specifically to tell me that, to say, hey, wherever you're going with this reimagining, we don't want to do this job alone, right? Because we're very scared. And they have the data, the same data that we have and our police officers have, on how dangerous those calls are. They're one of the most dangerous calls police officers respond to. And so we I think some may have the viewpoint in mind that, hey, there's calls out there like domestic violence calls that maybe we can no longer send police. But the professionals in the domestic violence community service world are saying, no, that's not the case, right? We don't want that. And so I think that's important. And one other example before I go to our assistant chief, I see he's got his hands up, was the example that Sparky Harlan had brought up, which is in regards to the Japantown community patrols. And to add some or shed some light on that as well, because I know that the way that it was described was that it's somehow a completely community-led effort. That's not the case. The Japantown community patrols was actually initiated, and it's being led by a San Jose Police Reserve officer, who has been leading efforts in Japantown for community safety, resiliency, emergency preparedness, and now this community patrol effort. And not only is it that reserve officer helping to lead the effort and train the individuals, San Jose Police Reserve officers have now been authorized by the police department to volunteer and do shifts out there. And that's at the direction or the response from the community, because they have asked for that. They have asked to see, could we actually get some uniformed officers out there to do some of these community patrols with them? And so the community there is not saying, we don't want to work with police officers, this is a completely community-led effort. They're saying the opposite. It was an effort, brought forward by our police department or a reserve, and it's an effort where they're saying, hey, we would love to have this be coupled. And so I think I don't want to have it get lost. When we're talking in short term or in context of some of these ideas, that there may be more as you peel back the onion to what's going on. If you truly understand sort of what's at stake there. And so that was it. I wanted to share that context because I think that's why it is important that we have these other voices and other voices at the table as we're having some of these conversations, because it's not so cut and dry as of a topic. It is a very, very important topic. And I'll end on one part. I think that's really important to remember, which is that the role of police in our society is enforcing the law. I know that we have framing, and when you look at the goals of the police department and all across the country, things are framed around keeping the peace. But as we know, not all laws historically been simply around keeping the peace, nor have they been laws that have been just toward particular individuals in our society. And it's actually we as elected officials who make those laws, and many of which over the years have been racist in nature, sexist or homophobic in nature. And then we have asked the police department to enforce those laws. And so I think, it's both important that we recall that and remember that, because that's where we have a responsibility as elected officials. Unfortunately, we have been pushing in regards to those topics here at the city of San Jose, as Councilmember Arenas pointed out, in things like creating the Office of Race and Equity, and really wanting to drill down on how we can do better as the full city, as elected officials that are setting the policies and the laws, and not necessarily just put the burden fully on our police officers and the police department. This is really something that we all have to take responsibility for, and I take that very seriously, because I've served both roles as a police officer and now as an elected official, and have a good view and perspective of the totality of the challenges that are in front of us. And so with that, I will be able to support the motion, but I want to turn it over to our assistant chief.
Thank you, council member. And actually, you anticipated some of what I was going to say, and so I thank you for that. I just wanted to kind of point out that first of all, I appreciate the support from everybody of keeping us involved in this process some way. I think that Chief Mata and I have from the very beginning wanted to be a part of this process, wanted to assist in any way we can, and I think some of the concern that I gleaned from the comments that I heard in the final meeting of this committee was that our involvement somehow means that either we're controlling the process or we have veto power over ideas that the community may have, or that it just dilutes what they're saying. And I don't see that as our role at all. I think for one, simply hearing from the community has value for us. Hearing their ideas, hearing the things they want to see, the kind of changes they would like to see us make is incredibly important for myself and for Chief Mata as we direct the department forward. Secondly, I think that our input is going to come at some point no matter what. Even if you had a fully autonomous group that came up with a list of suggestions, ultimately those suggestions I would imagine would come before a council committee or the full council for hearings, and you would then ask us, well, police department, what's your response to these suggestions? And there may be times when we may have to comment on whether or not we even have the capability as a police department to do some of the things that are being suggested, whether there could be legal barriers to some of the suggestions, or whether or not there are unintended consequences that perhaps were not foreseen but might be anticipated or mentioned by us if we were to enact certain proposals. That doesn't mean we control the dialogue. That doesn't mean that we're having veto power. Ultimately, you have the power. You have the power to direct us to do whatever you want us to do, and that's what we plan on doing. But we do think, this is what we do. We do think we have some insight to offer. And again, like I said, I think just simply hearing the community's input is incredibly valuable for us as leaders of the department. So thank you for the time.
Thank you. And I know I saw obviously in the video yourself and Chief Mata have been participating in that. And I would agree, and hence why I said I think having the participation, especially of yourselves, right, as leaders of the police department, individuals yourselves that can help set the policy, the duty manual policies, right, and again make some of those changes, much like we as elected officials can make for the entirety of the city, is really, really important that you're in those conversations, that you're able to hear those conversations throughout the whole process versus just maybe towards the end, as you pointed out. Okay, I think that concludes our comments, and staff, I'll just ask, you're clear on our direction now?
Yeah, we are clear. We got a lot of work to do over the next few days and coming weeks, but yeah, we will move forward with this recommendation and be ready for June 8th.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I look forward to hearing from our stakeholders. Again, thank you to our participants who participated today and that'll be meeting up next Tuesday. I look forward to hearing their recommendations. So if we can get a roll call vote now, please.
Arenas?
Yes.
Jones?
Aye.
Jimenez?
Aye.
Peralez?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, that now takes us to item D2, which is our City of San Jose Disaster Resiliency Annual Report. Thank you, Ray, for your patience.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really appreciate it. Good afternoon, committee chair, committee members, staff, and members of the community. I'm Ray Reardon, the director of the City Manager's Office of Emergency Management, and I'm here today to present the City of San Jose Disaster Resiliency Annual Report. Next slide. The intent of this 11-page report is to inform the committee on the city's efforts to build community resilience while responding to a disaster. The report is a compilation of the many activities accomplished during our complex response to the COVID-19 pandemic and additional emergencies, such as the wildfire threat from the SCU, or the Santa Clara Unit Complex Fire, the storm threats, the winter storm events that we had, and the ongoing PSPS events. The report is organized according to the objectives and key results for the city's enterprise priority of emergency management and preparedness. The 4 areas include: the city has a plan to tackle any emergency. Employees, citizens, and businesses are ready to take action and able to answer a call to action. Our community trusts the city to communicate and address their needs. And our emergency response is optimized through technology. Next slide. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through the entire report, but what I'd rather do is just to highlight a couple items in each one of these areas. The report goes into much more detail, and for the sake of brevity, I'll just move forward. In the area of the city has a plan, we created a response roadmap through the pandemic, listing the highest priority actions to slow and reduce the spread of COVID-19 and support the most at-risk population. The city also activated its Emergency Operations Center, began scaling up resources and response in preparation for the event and facility closures, increased telecommunicating, work from home capacity for employees, augmentation of communications to employees, and coordination with partner agencies, as well as other workplace and program modifications to ensure the continuity of city operations while protecting the safety of our employees, providing effective communication and supporting the county. In the call to action category, city partnerships with community organizations were vital to whatever we did and whatever part of our response, and very notably in our vaccination events. For example, the city collaborated with the Asian Americans for Community Involvement, or AKI, to conduct vaccination events at the City Hall, Rotunda, targeting highly vulnerable populations, to include persons with disabilities, unhoused, and or unstably housed populations. Of course, we formed partnerships throughout the COVID response for our major efforts, such as food necessities distribution as well. Partnering with community organizations were vital to our response. The value of having a person representing the access and functional needs issues was invaluable in the Emergency Operations Center. Combined with our public outreach managed by our language access team, were critical in making sure the message of our response and recovery efforts reach the most affected in our community. Our work continues in this arena and looking at how we can establish more ongoing positions. Next slide, please. In the third category, community trust the city, in response to the COVID-19 emergency and the city's shelter crisis declaration, the city worked to construct and open 3 emergency interim housing communities to help protect the unhoused people from the disease, slow the spread of COVID-19, and expand the city's housing capacity after the emergency recedes. This effort required close coordination and partnership with the county and many other partners. The EOC Community and Economic Recovery Branch helped distribute approximately $30 million in coronavirus relief funds to support our community in funding efforts such as providing resident assistance, small business assistance, assistance for nonprofits, and even childcare. And in the last category, optimized through technology, citywide staff relied heavily on the GIS, or Geographic Information System, tools and technology and a platform for managing data necessary for the response. These tools inform decision-making, improve coordination, and help alleviate duplication of effort. Since March 16, 2020, the San Jose Santa Clara Regional Wastewater Facility has participated in a COVID-19 wastewater surveillance pilot study with Stanford. Beginning November 16, 2020, the COVID-19 surveillance program was titled the Sewage Coronavirus Alert Network, or SCAN, a new term for it, which provided real-time analysis of wastewater samples for monitoring COVID-19 infection transmission trends within Santa Clara County. And with that, I'll end my report. More details are available in the report, but in terms of brevity, I thought we'd get to this point where we can turn it over for accepting the report. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Ray. We'll go to members of the public first, and I do see one hand that's raised. And just for recollection, we are speaking on the item D2, the City of San Jose Disaster Resiliency Annual Report. Go ahead, call in user 1.
Yeah, I hope you guys are going to be prepared for a natural disaster, because you can't even keep the Rose Garden fountain working. All the bathrooms, public facilities in San Jose are terrible. you guys better be prepared, because as taxpayers, we pay police and fire a lot of money. Yeah, I know the job's dangerous, but yeah, you guys get paid lots of money, lots of administration, lots of brass making $500,000 salaries. You guys better know what to do. You better be taking classes. You better be going to seminars. You better be prepared, because you guys talk about how much you do for the community. We're gonna, I'm gonna hold you to the test when the big earthquake hits or major fires. I'm not gonna accept any excuses from San Jose PD, San Jose Fire Department, and worse yet, the city council and the mayor. You guys need to get your act together. We already saw what happened when the Santa Clara Valley or Central Fire District went to go fight a fire. They didn't even have proper communication set up. That is bad. And you guys better be prepared for communication. You better be prepared to work with other departments and cities joining if a natural disaster occurs. We saw the flooding happen here. Really? Flooding in the 21st century? The Native American people, they knew how to prevent flooding. Read about how they used to do it. These guys knew what time it was. You guys just know when your paychecks arrive. So you better be prepared. I'm telling you. You guys can't handle anything. You can't handle a shed in a backyard. You can't handle a flagpole. How are you going to handle a natural disaster? You guys can't handle people drinking beer in public. You can't do anything. It's unbelievable. We'll see when the disaster comes what a disaster SJPD and the fire department and the city council is. That's the natural disaster we have to worry about. I yield my time. I'd like to hear some answers.
Thank you. And next up is Blair Beekman.
Hi, thank you. Thank you again so much for the previous item and the efforts you made and what can hopefully be a real community effort in the future. Again, it's incredibly idealistic. It's ideas of peace and to really question the future of the prison military industrial complex for all of us. That's incredibly idealistic, important work. Good luck with it. For this item, very, very interestingly, you brought up this item right afterwards, I think as a way to, kind of warn people and ask people to be wary and be ready, what to expect in the next few years. I think the previous caller to, note what he was saying, for as much as this report, speaks on the past years of COVID, I think the previous caller was asking, and myself is asking, is there ways to talk about how we prepare for future upcoming natural disaster events and resiliency ideas? Hopefully that can be in future reports and items for this committee. Thank you. Thank you very much for having this item. I mean, for just having it for myself is some sort of acknowledgement of possibly what we need to prepare for. And, I've been trying to say it for the past few weeks now. It's driving me crazy. But if you do talk about natural disaster in the context of the previous item, it makes our conversations much more clear and we won't be fighting as much. And, we can get down to the basics of, community policing versus police reform. And those issues become more clear and make more sense. So I think we really have to have a seat at the table for natural disasters in the next few years and its place in the conversation of police reform and community safety. Thank you.
We'll bring it back to the committee now, and Vice Mayor Jones.
Yes, I don't have a lot of input. I just wanted to say, Ray, we appreciate all your hard work and efforts. It's been a very unprecedented time. I know that word is used quite a bit, but it has been, and you and your organization have risen to the occasion. So I just want to let you know that we appreciate all the hard work and dedication and commitment. When you first started your job, I remember telling you that my disaster response plan was to run down the middle of the street yelling disaster, disaster, and then roll up in the fetal position and yell for my mom. I've come a long way since then, and a lot of it is because of all your hard work. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Arenas.
I'm sorry, but that was really funny. Thank you, Ray, for the presentation. I'm going to also thank you for all the work that you've done and that in our whole department and that you're leading in. One area that I did see that you missed talking about, and I wasn't sure if it just didn't fit into this, but that's the fires. I saw the GIS system in which we helped alert folks and for the food distribution, for vaccination, but it didn't include the fires. And so, I want to make sure that I know that was really important. Our office worked with yours along with the county. We had a lot of folks who were concerned out there as it was getting closer to District 8, and we did end up evacuating some portions of District 8. So I just wanted to make sure that I guess, is this where this belongs, or?
Well, usually that's more of our actual response thing that I report on in August, but it certainly does reflect on the resilience of the community. So it's I think there were a few other things that were sort of clouding our presentation here, but that certainly was a key part in demonstrating our resilience. And we are working right now actually with a number of the departments to start planning for this wildland fire season.
Thank you. Yes, there was a lot of folks helping each other out in preparation for an exit from their homes. Certainly, that was scary for some, and I think that should also be reflected. The other one the other area, this is just a question I had about CERT and where it's at. Have you started those trainings once again?
Yes, we have actually, Councilmember. We have started what we call a hybrid system.
Oh, the online, yes. Okay,
so
yeah.
We're doing the classroom instructions online, and we're still waiting for the approval that we can start doing the hands-on demonstrations. So we're waiting for those, the opportunity for when the restrictions to be lifted, to find a location to do it. Once we do that, then we'll finish that. The first
with a one day.
We've actually started a second one already.
Oh, great. So for that first one, it would be a 1 day hands-on training.
Correct. That's what's left.
Got it. Okay. Well, this is, CERT programs are always a popular training in my district, and especially in our villages community. And so I would love to ensure that all our villagers, as well as the rest of the district, learns about this online. I don't know how folks are catching on in terms of feeling comfortable on Zoom or not. But for now, it is what it is. I look forward to seeing the launch of the next one. When did you say that next one begins?
It'll be, I don't have the schedule right in front of me, but we're doing one a month, like we did the classes. So we're second one starting this end of this week.
Perfect. Awesome. I appreciate that. And thank you so much for all the work that you've done. I know the GIS work alone was just tremendous. So, and then your department and all the city and our residents encountered so much. So we really showed how resilient we are as a community, and as neighbors, we showed up for one another. So thank you for leading that charge, so that, our vice mayor doesn't have to roll up in a fetal position. I would probably join you, Vice Mayor. I'd be rolling down the street in the fetal position too. Anyways, thank you so much, Ray.
You're welcome. And in fact, next week we do have a session with the villages partners next week.
Perfect. Oh, and motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the annual report, and I will echo the thanks, Ray, as well. Really, really appreciate the efforts of your team. As you pointed out, Certainly you weren't without enough content for this annual report. We have been in the state of emergency this whole past year, and so there was a lot to be able to put in there. There was one little section that talks about the public safety power shutoffs, and so very, very brief though, but obviously as Councilmember Inez pointed out, there were other responses that your office was able to help navigate our community through, and then I think our community showed resiliency. I think we can say without a doubt that we are, much more prepared for the next emergency because of the work that you have done. And it wasn't just simply because of this COVID pandemic and everything that we've been able to go through. I think we were better prepared to address this pandemic than we would have been a few years ago, really because of the efforts after the floods. And really a lot of kudos go to you and your team. I think it shows the importance of being prepared for an emergency. None of us expected this to happen anywhere around the world, right? And we were talking about earthquakes and floods, and pandemic was not top of mind for us, but our Office of Emergency Services, right, is able to, or emergency management, able to take on really any emergency. And as you put in your report, we are prepared to be able to do that now. And I fully believe that, as Vice Mayor Jones pointed out, that I think there was a level of desperation and fear in all of us when we had a better understanding and briefing of how ill prepared we were and how understaffed we were. We all felt that way, as Vice Mayor Jones did. And I think we all now feel a much better sense of relief of where we're at today. And I think our community, right, is feeling that as well, and should be proud of the efforts. I'll end on this. I know last week on Thursday during the study session, our budget study session, we had discussed how Ray was not there to talk when there were a couple questions that came up, and he had a staff member there. And we had heard that Ray was enjoying some much needed time off. Well, I will let my colleagues here know that I happened to catch Ray on his time off, which was the next morning, bright and early. He decided to volunteer on his day off at the vaccination site at City Hall, where his team was there working and helping to orchestrate and help put together, obviously, that entire event, which was a very successful vaccination event. But I specifically was very surprised to see him and asked him, why was he there, right? He was supposed to be enjoying much needed time off. And as it turned out, he was able to enjoy some time with his son while his son was here, and the son was going to be gone that day. So he decided he would volunteer that day with us. That's the dedication of the individuals that we have here in the city. And so Ray, cannot thank you enough for the dedication that you're providing to our city. So thank you for that. And we'll be able to take the vote now.
Thank you, and I want to recognize the support from the city manager's office and the other staff, because we can't do it without a team, and including our partnerships with our nonprofits.
Thank you, Ray. So if we can root through a roll call vote now, please.
Arenas?
Yes.
Jones?
Aye.
Jimenez?
Aye.
Peralez?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Ray. That moves us to the last item, which is open forum. We'll have 2 minutes each, so we'll now go over to open forum. And first up is Scott Largent.
Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon, Scott Largent. I've noticed near the end of the meeting, you kind of hear that chime of a lot of people logging off. And I was hoping that our police chief, our new police chief, would still be on the meeting. He might not. Well, we'll just kind of go from there. I read an article yesterday about a man that I met. I met him about 3 years ago. He contacted me on YouTube. He saw me speaking at city council meetings, government meetings. His name's Nicholas Robinson. And on San Jose Spotlight, there's an article about Nicholas and what the San Jose Police Department did to him. I like to look at both sides of a situation. So when I first met him, I went and pulled his criminal file. And I just wanted to better understand things. And it's shocking what was done to this man. And I'm just letting you guys know the time clock stuck at 1:46 on here, so I don't even know if you guys are even hearing me. But San Jose police officer.
We can hear you.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. San Jose police officer Ryan Dote makes $336,000 a year, badge number 4006. In that video that you're able to watch on San Jose Spotlight, it was disturbing for me to see it. I wish I had seen it years ago, and it was upsetting. And immediately in my mind says something needs to be done about this. This man should be fired, blah, blah, blah. Then Nicholas sent me all the chest cameras. So you get another angle from another younger rookie officer, female officer that was there. What you watch is Ryan Dote come up, and basically the other officer, Peterson, goes around to the backside of Nicholas. The way that they double arm barred, slamming his face into the ground and breaking his arm, because you can just hear it snap. There's ways that if somebody is a threat out there, which I don't really think he is, he could have just been detained. He could have been arrested. He could have, there's so many different ways of going about it rather than doing a double arm bar takedown, breaking someone's arm. Now, when you listen more into the video or the chest cameras, the way the officers are yelling at him, didn't you hear me? Didn't you hear me? It's very disgusting. And I'm looking towards you council members to start putting some heat on the city manager. Officer Dote, you need to fire that man, okay? I don't care what Nicholas Robinson's done in the past. No one should be treated that way at all. So you guys please need to do something about this.
Thank you, Scott. Next up is Blair Beekman.
Hi, thank you. I've been doing this open public policy, since it's basically ideas out of the era of 9/11 and how to create peace instead of war. With 9/11, with, the flood of San Jose, with COVID-19, I'm trying to learn my part of what can be open and transparent and accountable and, good practices. So, my latest I'm going around is that, in reading community energy statistics and reports in the Bay Area, I've been learning that it's quite maybe possible that there will be an earthquake, a large earthquake in 2023 in the Bay Area. Now, I don't know if that's correct or not, but putting it out there can give your own selves, your own judgment and direction what I'm thinking and what I have a logic that's describing this. So you can begin to make your own decisions. And if you've noticed, there's been more and more reporting in local city governments of, we need to prepare for natural disasters. I thank you for that. That offers to create dialogue. And I want to learn how to create that sort of dialogue. And so that's what I've been doing is if we talk more and more about natural disasters, we prepare better as a community. People will be safer. And then we can start to develop better practices of health and human services before more and more police funding. So it's a win-win situation for everybody is what I'm trying to work towards. And, so I like the words of both Councilperson Jones and Arenas. I felt Councilperson Jones offered a bit of good guidelines. And from there, Councilperson Arenas offered, just really good, we got to really do it now. We can do things now. And that's good. That was really nice to hear. And Scott Largent just provided what we do need to do now and work on now. So it's a combination of things, and let's be open and work together at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Blair. And our last public speaker will be call-in user 1.
Yeah, these police departments, especially San Jose PD, you practice what I call penny liner police work. You go after penny laws, trying to, get people up on charges for doing, minor misdemeanor or worse yet, driving infractions. And it's disgusting. It's always these little things that create big things like breaking a guy's arm. Who pays for that? Well, the police department, people who work in the police department can afford it because they make $300,000 a year or more. They're able to afford these. It's easy for them to say, oh, yeah, don't worry, taxpayer will pick it up. What do they care? Because they're already on the taxpayer teat already. It's glorified welfare as far as I'm concerned once they retire. But yeah, they go around breaking people. Who pays for the broken arms and the police dogs attacking people, which is funny. The police dogs usually bite policemen, which is funny. I've seen it a few times. I can't help but laugh. But yeah, who pays for all this? We do, the taxpayer. So there has to be other ways of police work, and all these fines and ticketing. They wonder why everybody hates them. I mean, how many times do you see them, waving their ticket book in someone's face? I mean, they're a bunch of jerks. They need to get a better attitude, and they need to start doing real police work, like catching real criminals that murder and rape and break into houses and steal cars. At the same time, they're worried about a guy walking down the street, a guy smoking a cigarette, a guy who doesn't look right. Look what they do. Hey, look, you want to be loved or feared, but guess what? You never want to be hated. And that's what everyone thinks about San Jose PD. They hate them. And everyone's like, oh, it's only the brown and black community. No. They treat everybody like complete garbage. They're too good to treat people properly. And their smug and arrogant attitudes need to end.
Thank you very much. All right. And our meeting is adjourned.